The next morning, public square. The pack gathered in the square at dawn. The air was thick with tension. Whispers passed between warriors, mothers, and elders. The news had spread like wildfire. The Gamma's daughter had been found guilty of treason and murder. On a raised platform stood the execution block carved from obsidian stone. A heavy silver blade rested upon it. Cece was dragged onto the platform, her hands and feet bound in silver cuffs, her once shining hair matted with sweat and dried blood. The crowd looked on in grim silence. Lucian addressed the pack, voice ringing out. By decree of Alpha Damian Black, and in accordance with the ancient laws of the Crimson Moon Pack, Cece of the Gamma bloodline has been found guilty of treason, conspiracy, attempted regicide, and murder. A murmur passed through the crowd. She has shown no remorse. She acted with selfish ambition and malice, and in doing so, endangered the life of our Luna and cost a loyal servant her life. He stepped aside. Damian stepped forward, cloaked in black, his aura a storm of fury and pain. Damian raised his hand. The verdict has been decided, he said, his voice booming across the courtyard like thunder. For the murder of an innocent maid, for betrayal, conspiracy, and poisoning the Luna of this pack, Cece, daughter of Gamma Terran, is hereby sentenced to public execution by beheading. Gasps swept through the crowd. The Gamma's wife collapsed to her knees, sobbing, but Terran, the Gamma, stood frozen, his face a mask of shame and silent agony. Cece looked up, her lips trembling. "No, please," she whispered. I didn't mean—" "Silence," Damian growled. "You meant to kill her. And you did. And now you will pay." He met Cece's eyes one last time. "No mercy for traitors," he said. Then, coldly, "Execute her." The executioner, a tall, solemn warrior, stepped forward and forced Cece's head onto the block. She screamed, weeping now. "I didn't mean to. Please, Alpha! Damian!" The blade came down. One swift strike. The crowd didn't cheer. They stood in solemn silence as the body slumped to the side and the head rolled, coming to rest at the base of the platform. Damian turned to the warriors. "Prepare, Julianne. Her fate follows." Julianne, the disgraced head maid, was dragged out next, bloodied, bruised, barely standing. Her execution would follow. Julianne looked up, her lips trembling. "I was loyal to Zara." And with that, Lucian's blade came down in a clean, swift arc. Silence fell. Her head rolled across the stone, blood pooling beneath her knees. Justice had been served. Mira's soul would finally rest. Damian stepped down from the platform, his hands clenched. "Let this be a warning," he growled to the pack. "No one touches my mate. No one betrays this pack, not even the blood of a Gamma." But as the warriors dragged Julianne forward, a new thought stirred in Damian's mind. If Cece was loyal to Zara, what else has been planted in our pack? The war wasn't over. It had just begun. The moon hung high in the sky, casting silver light across the blood-streaked paths that led back to the Alpha's estate. Damian and Lucian marched in heavy silence, their clothes stained with the violence of justice. The weight of Mira's death, the betrayal, and Cece's execution still clung to their souls like smoke. Suddenly, "Alpha!" A breathless voice shattered the silence. Damian and Lucian turned sharply as one of the young healer's servants sprinted toward them, nearly tripping over himself in his urgency. "Alpha, Damian! It's Lady Ella! She's waking up! Her strength is returning!" Time froze. Damian's heart lurched in his chest. For a moment he couldn't breathe, then joy surged like wildfire through his veins. Without a word, he broke into a run. Lucian followed closely behind, a rare, fierce smile cracking through his grim expression. Relief flooded his features. They stormed into the healer's house, pushing open the double wooden doors just as the scent of healing herbs filled the air. Inside, soft candlelight glowed gently across the still form of Ella, who lay pale but breathing, her eyes fluttering open for the first time in days. Damian's steps faltered. "Ella," he whispered. Her silver eyes, dimmed with fatigue but alive, lifted to meet his. "Damian." He was at her side in 2 strides, falling to his knees beside the bed. His calloused hands took her delicate ones carefully, reverently. "You came back to me," he choked out, his voice thick with emotion. "Moon goddess, I thought I lost you." Tears slid down his face, silent and raw. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to the back of her hand as he held it tightly. "I swear, I'll never let anything hurt you again. You're safe now, my love. I'm here." Ella blinked slowly, her gaze trying to focus. Her voice was a whisper. I felt you calling me. In the dark. I heard you. Damien sobbed softly, unable to hold it back. Because I never stopped, Ella. I never stopped. Lucian stood silently nearby, his arms crossed tightly over his chest, his eyes misting as he watched the reunion. You fought through death itself, Damien whispered. You're the strongest soul I've ever known. You are my heart, my mate, my queen. Ella's lips trembled into the faintest smile before she closed her eyes once more, her strength still weak, but her heartbeat steady and strong. Damien leaned in and kissed her forehead gently, protectively. He stayed by her side through the night, guarding her with love and a vengeance that now burned brighter than ever. And though the war was not yet over, hope had returned. Damien sat by Ella's bedside, his hand still cradling hers, unwilling to let go even for a moment. The room was quiet now. Only the soft crackle of the hearth fire and the faint rustle of the healer's movements broke the silence. Moments later, the elderly healer, Master Yoon, stepped forward. His face was lined with years of wisdom, his expression calm, though weariness clung to his shoulders from long hours tending to Ella. She's stable now, Master Yoon said softly, setting down a bowl of crushed herbs. The dark magic has been purged from her system. Her body is weak, but it's healing, slowly but surely. Damien looked up at him, his eyes rimmed with exhaustion but lit with a desperate hope. Are you sure she'll recover? The healer gave a reassuring nod, his tone confident yet gentle. Yes, Alpha. Her spirit is strong. That alone pulled her back from the brink when many others would have slipped away. The worst is over. Damien let out a shaky breath, one hand covering his mouth as emotion welled up in his chest again. Thank the moon goddess. Ella will need rest, warmth, nourishment, and love, the healer added, giving him a small, knowing smile. Something tells me she already has that in abundance. Damien blinked away fresh tears and looked down at Ella's peaceful face. He brushed a strand of silver hair away from her forehead. She has all of me, he whispered. Forever. Master Yoon stepped back, giving the pair their privacy. She'll wake more in the coming days. Her strength will return piece by piece, but we must be patient. She's endured much, not just in body, but in spirit. Damien nodded, his jaw tight with emotion. She won't face it alone. With that, Master Yoon left quietly, and Damien remained at Ella's side, silently vowing to never let darkness touch her again. In the far reaches of Lila's shadowed territory, beneath the twisted canopy of deadened trees and blackened skies, Zara paced back and forth inside her chamber, an underground war room lit by torches and burning incense. The heavy stone door creaked open. 3 hooded figures stepped inside, the secret spies she had trusted time and again. They knelt before her without a word, their heads bowed low, waiting for her permission to speak. Zara's sharp voice cut through the silence. Speak. One of the spies, the youngest of the trio, dared to raise her head slightly. The poison failed, my lady. Mira, she was intercepted. Beta Lucian caught her attacker. The maid is dead. Zara froze. For a moment the chamber fell deathly still. The torches flickered wildly, as though even the flames feared what was coming. And then, crash! Zara's hand swept across the war table, sending vials, scrolls, and glass bottles shattering to the ground. Her power flared violently, black mist crackling from her fingertips like lightning. She was supposed to die slowly, she hissed, her golden eyes blazing with fury. Ella was supposed to rot from the inside out, not be saved. The youngest spy shrank back in fear. We didn't anticipate the beta would arrive so soon, or that Mira would resist. Zara's growl echoed through the room. Mira was weak. She was supposed to obey. Cece promised she had it under control. One of the other spies dared to speak. Cece is dead, my lady. Beheaded, in front of the pack. Zara's breath caught, then released in a slow, deadly whisper. So they've started purging traitors already. Her gaze turned colder, more calculating. And Julianne? Awaiting execution, the third spy replied. Zara turned toward the wall where maps of Damien's packed territory hung. Her nails dug into the stone, drawing faint lines of blood. So close to breaking her, and now the little white wolf is healing. A dangerous smile spread across her lips, filled with hatred and madness. They think they've won, they think they're safe. Let them breathe, let them celebrate her survival. She turned to the kneeling spies, her voice low and venomous. Because when I strike again, she whispered, it won't be poison. It'll be fire, blood, war. The torches flared higher, reacting to her rage. The darkness pulsed with her promise, and Ella, she seethed, will wish she had died from the poison. Deep within the heart of her shadow fortress, Lila stood surrounded by dark flames and swirling cursed winds. Her chamber was a shrine to ancient darkness, where whispers of long-dead spirits echoed through the stone walls. She had just received the news. Ella had survived. The poison failed. Cece was dead. Julianne, exposed. The secret lines inside Damien's pack were collapsing. Lila's hand trembled, not from fear but from the storm building inside her. Her black gown fluttered in the unnatural wind, eyes glowing with blood-red fury. Boom! A table exploded as she slammed her hand against it. Flames roared from the stone floor as the shadows howled. The door burst open. Zara stumbled inside, clearly summoned by the witch's wrath. Lila. Before she could finish, she was thrown off her feet by a violent surge of dark magic. She hit the wall with a gasp, coughing from the sheer pressure that crushed the air from her lungs. You dare walk in here after this disgrace? Lila's voice wasn't human. It echoed like a demon's snarl, deep and hollow. You failed me, Zara. Zara clutched her ribs, blood trailing from her mouth. I did everything. Everything? Lila shrieked. Her shadowy cloak expanded, filling the entire chamber like wings of a great beast. You were handed power, spies, poison, a perfect plan, and you allowed a mere maid and a sniveling Gamma's daughter to ruin it all? She raised her hand, and Zara's body lifted from the floor, choking, dangling midair. I should rip your soul from your chest and offer it to the abyss, Lila screamed. Zara gasped. Please, give me another chance. The flames flickered violently, her plea barely audible over the crackling rage. For a moment it seemed Lila might actually do it, end Zara then and there. But then, just as suddenly, the witch released her. Zara dropped to the floor like a rag doll, coughing, trembling. Lila turned her back. We cannot afford weakness, she hissed. Damien is angry. His wolves are alert. The white wolf is rising. Zara wiped the blood from her lips, her body aching, her pride shattered. What do we do now? Lila turned slightly, her glowing eyes piercing. Now, we don't try to break Ella. Her lips curled into a venomous smile. We draw her into the darkness. Zara's breath caught. How? Lila's laughter was a low, chilling whisper, by offering her something even the moon goddess cannot give. Lila's smile was razor-thin, cruel, and flickering like flame. Power crackled at her fingertips, painting the air with sparks of dark magic. Pathetic, she whispered, her voice seething. Utterly useless. Zara collapsed to her knees, eyes wide with panic, her body trembling under the weight of failure. Please, Lila, my queen, I tried. I did everything you asked. Her voice shook, brittle as glass. I'll fix it. I'll kill her. Just give me another chance. Lila tilted her head, eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Her laughter was low and poisonous, curling around Zara like smoke. Another chance? She mocked. You think I offer mercy to those who disgrace me? Zara's breath caught, chest rising and falling with panic. I'm loyal, she gasped. I swear it. I'll do anything. Just please, don't cast me aside. Darkness swirled around Lila's feet like living shadows. Her hand twitched again, the surge of power almost suffocating. You should thank the stars I haven't ripped your heart from your chest, she hissed. You've failed me, but I may yet wring one final use from you. Zara blinked through the panic, hope flickering like a candle in the storm. I can still serve you? Lila turned her back, her silhouette framed by the burning sigils on the wall. Her voice was cold and sharp. Yes, but not out of trust, only because I need someone. Disposable. Zara swallowed hard but nodded. Then I'll be your blade. Just point me at the target. Lila turned back, her smile wicked, teeth glinting like a predator's. Then listen well, little pawn. This is your last thread of purpose. Fail me again. Her voice dropped into a growl, and I'll make you wish you were never born. I won't fail, Zara swore, her voice shaking but fierce. I'll end her. Ella will bleed for everything. Lila's eyes glinted with cruel delight. Good, she murmured, because this time the white wolf must fall. She moved to the ancient mirror etched with spells, her reflection a haunting vision of darkness incarnate. Raising her hand, she traced a rune in the air. She will crumble, Lila whispered. Her light snuffed, her soul devoured, and when she falls, I shall rise. Her laughter rose again, slow and poisonous, echoing through the chamber like a curse. Shadows danced on the walls. No one will stop me? Not the pack. Not Damien. and certainly not that fragile little mate of his. Her gaze sharpened, filled with hunger. Let the game begin. Zara knelt before Lila, her head lowered in submission, though her heart thundered beneath her ribs. The chamber was thick with shadows, unnatural, pulsing, alive. Lila sat upon her throne of black stone, her presence a suffocating pressure that seemed to drain the air itself. "My queen," Zara began, her voice tight with reverence and fear. "The rogues have agreed to the attack. They believe Ella is the reason for their banishment. They're eager, rabid even, thirsting for her blood." Lila leaned forward, her crimson lips curling into a venomous smile. Her eyes shimmered with cruel satisfaction. "Good," she hissed. "Let them bleed for me. Let them throw themselves at Damien's gates like dogs. Their rage will shatter his walls, and their deaths will be my signal." She raised one hand, and dark magic crackled at her fingertips like stormfire, violet and black. The very stone beneath her throne groaned with power. "When the rogues have softened him, when his precious pack is distracted and his Luna lies broken," her voice dropped into a near whisper, laced with lethal intent, "I'll strike the final blow myself." Zara lifted her gaze slightly, her eyes wide with awe. "Shall I summon the elite, my queen, the ones bound to your will?" Lila's gaze turned sharp as a dagger. "Yes, bring me the strongest, the marked. I want them in position, hidden, waiting, the moment Damien falters." "We rain death." Zara's breath caught. "As you command, my queen." Lila's expression darkened, her power rising like a storm cloud behind her. "Tell them, this is the beginning of the end. The age of light is crumbling, and I will reign in the ashes." Zara bowed deeper, her voice barely a whisper. "Glory to the Shadow Queen." Behind her, Lila's laughter echoed off the walls, low, twisted, triumphant, and far beyond the dark castle walls, storm clouds gathered over Damien's territory. The war had begun. The healer's chambers were quiet, save for the soft rustling of leaves outside and the occasional flicker of candlelight. Ella lay beneath layers of blankets, her skin pale, her breathing shallow, but steady. Her recovery was slow, but it was progress. Damien hadn't left her side since the moment she opened her eyes. Even now, he sat beside her, holding her fragile hand in his thumb gently brushing over her knuckles, his gaze never far from her face. But as the silence stretched into the night, Ella's eyes fluttered open again, this time not from pain or restlessness, but from something else. A ripple. At first it was faint, like a whisper in the back of her mind. But then it grew, thicker, heavier. It was like a storm cloud pressing against her soul. She gasped softly, her fingers twitching in Damien's grasp. He straightened at once. "Ella? What is it?" His voice was gentle but laced with alarm. Her lips parted, her eyes clouded. "Something's wrong. I feel it." Her voice was hoarse, weak but sure. "Damien, I feel it through the bond." Damien's jaw tightened. "What do you feel?" Her brow furrowed. "Dread, anger, hatred. It's aimed at you, at us." Damien rose instantly, his instincts flaring. "Who?" Ella shook her head slightly, her breathing labored. "I don't know, but it's coming. I can feel the darkness crawling closer, like it's breathing down our necks." Lucian, standing nearby, stiffened. "You think someone's about to attack the pack?" "I don't think," Ella whispered. "I know." Damien reached forward and cupped her cheek, his expression tender yet fierce. "You don't need to worry, love. I won't let anything happen to you again. Not while I'm breathing." But Ella gripped his wrist weakly. "Damien, don't underestimate this. It's more than just hate. It's dark, twisted. Like someone's feeding it, like it's unnatural." Damien's gaze darkened. "Magic." Lucian cursed under his breath. "Rogues don't use magic, not unless someone's backing them." "Zara," Damien growled, the name like poison on his tongue. Ella nodded faintly. "She's not done, and she's not alone." Damien turned to Lucian, his voice suddenly steel. "Double the patrols, lock down the borders, and prepare the elite warriors. If they want to bring the war to us, then we'll be ready." Lucian nodded sharply and vanished through the door. Damien turned back to Ella and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. "Rest now, my love. You've already saved us once. It's my turn." Ella closed her eyes slowly, but her grip on his hand remained. "Just come back to me. Always." "I will," he whispered, rising with his aura flaring. "No shadow will take me from you, not now, not ever." And as he left the healer's chamber, the bond between them pulsed once more, a quiet warning. The storm was near. The moon hung high and cold above the forests beyond the borders of Damien's territory, casting long shadows over the rogue camp. A procession of darkness moved silently beneath the trees. Rogues, dozens of them, now empowered by Zara's dark potions, their eyes glowing faintly with unnatural strength. Their snarls were muted, restrained. Their purpose was clear. Their hunger for blood even clearer. It would take them 3 days to reach the heart of Damien's pack. And they would march with vengeance in their hearts and black magic in their veins. Meanwhile, deep within the Alpha's estate, the war room burned with light and tense energy. Damien stood at the center, a large map of the territory spread before him, marked with sigils, pins, and guard routes. Lucian stood beside him, arms folded, his brow furrowed. "The patrols are doubled," Lucian said. "Scouts are stationed across the eastern and northern ridges. Every warrior is on high alert." "Good," Damien replied, his voice low and lethal. "But it's not enough." Lucian glanced at him. "You're expecting more than just a frontal attack?" Damien's jaw clenched. "Yes, because the real threat isn't just the rogues outside the walls. It's the rot still festering inside." Lucian went silent. Damien's eyes narrowed over the map, but his thoughts were elsewhere. "We caught Cece. We killed Julianne. But how could they have moved for so long without help? There's more. Hidden eyes, silent ears. They're still here." "You think there are more spies?" Lucian asked. "I don't think," Damien growled. "I know." Lucian's gaze darkened. "Then we'll find them." "We have to," Damien said. "Before they strike again when we're vulnerable. I want you to keep the investigation running quietly. Interrogate anyone Cece or Julianne had contact with. Search the servant quarters again. Look through guard rotations. Don't trust anyone blindly, not even the ones closest to us." Lucian nodded, his voice resolute. "I'll have a team start tonight." Damien turned from the map, his eyes distant. "I won't let this pack fall. Not to rogues, not to traitors, not while Ella lies in that bed still recovering from their treachery." "She'll live," Lucian said softly. "She better," Damien murmured. "Because if they ever touch her again, there won't be a corner of this world they can hide in." Outside the estate, the cold wind blew across the walls, carrying with it the scent of an approaching storm. But it wasn't just a storm of claws and blood. It was the war of shadows, fought in silence, in secrets, and in whispered betrayal. And Damien knew. The true enemy wasn't only marching toward them from the forest. It was already within. The night was still. A low fog crept along the outer grounds of the Gamma's estate, curling around the walls like a serpent. Hidden in its folds, a shadow slipped silently through the trees, unseen, unchallenged. She had been here once before, when she whispered to Julianne behind prison bars. Now, her target was far more dangerous and far more useful. The Gamma. She found him in the garden behind his estate, hunched on a stone bench beneath a gnarled tree, his shoulders heavy with grief. His face was hollow, his eyes sunken. The memory of Cece's public execution still haunted him, and the image of his wife's sickly frame curled and withering in their bed clung to his every breath. He didn't look up when the woman stepped into the moonlight. "I warned Julianne once," she said softly, "but it did her no good. Now I come to you, Gamma, because, unlike her, you still have something left to lose." His eyes lifted slowly, tired and bitter. "Who are you?" "No one," she replied, smiling faintly. "Just someone who knows what it feels like to be loyal and betrayed." He scoffed and turned away. "You waste your time." "Do I?" Her voice was smooth, laced with venom. "You gave everything to this pack, and what did you get in return? A dead daughter, a dying wife, and an alpha who used you, then tossed you aside like nothing." "Enough," he snapped. "I won't hear this." "But you already know it's true," she whispered. "You've heard the whispers, haven't you? The ones that say Lucian's been doing your job for years, the ones that call you the Beta's shadow, the Gamma in name only." His hands curled into fists. She stepped closer, voice low and deadly. "You think it was justice what they did to your Cece? She was a warrior, loyal, strong. She gave her blood to this pack, and they strung her up like a criminal, as if her life meant nothing." "Stop," he growled, standing. But she wasn't done. "They laughed behind your back, Gamma. I've heard them myself. You're a joke to them, a weakling, a man who bowed too low for too long to a king who never saw your worth." His breath caught, his jaw clenched. "And now?" Her smile curved, cruel and slow. "Now they're planning to replace you. Did you know that? Damien and Lucian, already discussing names. You're not just forgotten. You're being erased." He stared at her, rage flaring behind his eyes. She stepped close enough for him to smell the poison in her words. "Why should you remain loyal to a man who rewards your loyalty with loss? Why serve a king who would see your family shattered?" "What do you want?" he asked darkly. She leaned in. "Lucian dies first, then Damien. And when they fall, the pack will need a new Alpha." Her eyes gleamed. "And who better than a man who's already given it everything?" The Gamma hesitated. But the pain, the humiliation, the buried rage, everything she said had already existed in his heart, even if he never dared admit it. Her words were only watering the roots of resentment. And tonight they began to bloom. "I'm in," he said finally, his voice low and bitter. A cold smile curved on her lips. "Good, then let's begin." The night air was thick with tension as the cloaked female spy moved like smoke through the shadows outside the borders of Damien's pack. Despite the reinforced security and patrols, she knew the cracks in every wall, the blind spots in every guard's gaze. Zara had trained her spies well, but even they didn't know who she truly served. It wasn't long before she found them, Zara's 3 secret spies, hidden in the thick woods beyond the reach of the pack's soldiers. At the soft whistle signal, they emerged, faces masked, eyes sharp. She didn't waste time. "Tell your mistress this," she hissed, her voice sharp with glee. "The Gamma is in play now, weak-minded, hollowed by grief and pride. He believes he has a chance to wear the crown, and we'll let him believe it, until his usefulness runs dry." The spies said nothing, only nodded, vanishing into the trees to deliver the message. Back at the edge of her dark lair, Zara paced with restless energy, waiting. When the message arrived, her laughter filled the night, high, gleeful, wicked. "He fell for it," she whispered, eyes gleaming. "The fool wants to be Alpha." Without wasting a heartbeat, she rushed to Lila's chambers, her spirit burning with pride. "My queen," she announced breathlessly, bowing deeply. "The Gamma has turned. He believes he'll rule next. Our plan is unfolding perfectly." Lila's smile was slow and chilling. "Excellent," she purred. "Let the blind lead the damned." With a flick of her fingers, she summoned a small vial, black and shimmering like ink under moonlight. "A reward," she said silkily, holding it out to Zara. Zara's hands trembled as she accepted the vial, eyes wide with reverence. "You continue to prove your loyalty," Lila whispered. What Zara didn't know, what she'd never know until it was too late, was that the liquid lacing the vial was the same dark magic slowly unraveling her from within. Each drop she consumed chipped away at her soul, binding her more tightly to Lila and death. Once Zara had left to celebrate her victory, Lila moved deeper into her chambers, the air growing colder with each step. There, behind a door of runes and shadow, was the dungeon. A single torch burned low on the wall, casting a flickering light over the ruined figure chained in the corner. Kaden, once a proud guardian of ancient bloodlines, now little more than a breathing corpse. Lila stood before the cage, arms folded, her eyes gleaming with cruel delight. How the mighty have fallen. Kaden flinched at the sound of her voice, though he could no longer hear it. She had stolen his hearing long ago, ripped it from him like flesh from bone. His sense of smell, too, had been taken when she needed it to create the first batch of the dark poison placed under Ella's bed. Now he was little more than an empty husk, useless and trembling. The moment he saw her, he scrambled backward, dragging his body into the shadows, pressing himself against the stone as if it could swallow him whole. Lila laughed, delighted by his fear. "You used to be so noble," she crooned. "So righteous. Now look at you, crawling like a rat." She leaned in close to the bars, voice dripping venom. "After I'm done with Damien, after I've burned his pack and torn the White Wolf apart, I'll return for you, and end this pitiful existence myself." She turned with a cruel smile, her cloak sweeping behind her as she walked away, her laughter echoing through the stone halls. Behind her in the darkness, Kaden wept silently, broken, forgotten, and waiting for death. The morning air was calm, deceptively peaceful, as the Gamma approached the healer's house under the pretense of offering apologies. His shoulders were hunched with the weight of false grief, his eyes misted just enough to pass as genuine sorrow. But beneath the surface, rage simmered, hot and thick like molten steel. Inside, Ella lay on the cot, still pale but slowly regaining color. Her eyes fluttered open at the sound of the door creaking. Damien was seated beside her, fingers gently intertwined with hers. Lucian stood nearby, ever watchful, arms crossed as the Gamma entered. The moment their eyes met, Damien stood. "Gamma," he greeted, his tone guarded but not hostile. "Didn't expect you here." The Gamma lowered his head. "I come not as a warrior, but as a grieving father." His voice trembled with carefully practiced pain. I wanted to apologize to Luna Ella for Cece's treachery. I was blind to her darkness. I failed to raise her right." Ella blinked slowly, lips parting as she tried to speak, but Damien gently shook his head. "She needs rest." The Gamma nodded, eyes locked on Ella's fragile frame. "Of course, I just needed to say the words." His gaze flickered to Damien, filled with something unreadable. "She looks strong, despite everything." Lucian stepped forward, his presence sharp. "You've said your piece." The Gamma offered a weak smile and turned to leave, hiding the bitterness in his clenched fists. Outside, his expression twisted as he walked into the forest's edge. "They'll regret this," he thought bitterly. "Lucian will die first. Then Damien. I will take my place." Back inside, silence hung thick, Lucian's brow furrowed. "Did you feel that?" Damien looked at him, distracted. "What?" "That wasn't an apology. That was a performance," Lucian said flatly. He barely looked at Ella. His eyes, they were calculating, cold. Damien sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "He lost his daughter, Lucian. I can't fault him for being off." Lucian's eyes narrowed. "We've all lost people, Damien, but something about him, it didn't sit right." Before Damien could respond, a sharp knock rattled the door. One of the patrol captains barged in, breathing hard. "My Alpha," he gasped. "Rogues, at the northern border. They've broken through the first perimeter." Lucian and Damien exchanged a look that spoke volumes. Battle mode. Damien's eyes turned cold, focused. "Sound the horns, lock the inner gates, evacuate the civilians, get the warriors ready." Lucian was already moving. "I'll handle the southern flanks and meet you at the front lines." The healer stepped in protectively, shielding Ella. "I'll keep her safe." Damien squeezed Ella's hand, kissing her knuckles. "I'll return. No one will touch you. I swear it." As he and Lucian stormed out, the air in the pack turned electric, tense and trembling. War had come to their doorstep. Unseen, the female spy watched from the treetops, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. One pawn had been moved. Another was about to fall. Let the bloodshed begin. The night was thick with tension, the sky above the pack's second defense shrouded in bruised clouds. Lucian stood tall, his expression carved from steel, as he led the Gamma and the elite warriors through the narrow pass of the secondary perimeter, a sacred boundary meant to keep darkness from bleeding into the heart of the pack. Behind him, the warriors stood ready, their armor gleaming beneath the flickering torchlight. The Gamma, ever silent, flanked his left. His eyes held a strange glint, one Lucian couldn't quite read. "Hold the line," Lucian growled. "We don't let them pass this point. If they break through here, it's over." Meanwhile, back near the healer's house, Damien moved swiftly through the compound. His face was set in grim focus as he issued orders to trusted guards, placing elite warriors at every entrance, rooftop, and hidden blind spot. His thoughts never left Ella, not for a breath. She was still too weak, too vulnerable, and he couldn't shake the feeling that the true threat hadn't yet shown itself. "Triple the guards," Damien commanded. "Anyone without a rank crest doesn't get within 10 feet of this place. I don't care if they're bleeding or begging, turn them away." The guards saluted. "Yes, Alpha." Damien stepped inside the healer's house briefly, watching as Ella stirred, her brow furrowed in sleep. Something in the bond between them pulsed, unease, as if she too felt the storm creeping closer. "I'll protect you," he whispered under his breath, "with everything I have." At the second perimeter, Lucian stared down the invading rogues from atop a ridge. Dozens of them littered the forest floor, snarling and armed with crude, blood-stained weapons. Their leader, Garin, stood tall among them, his eyes wild with the unmistakable haze of dark magic. Lucian stepped forward. "Turn back now," he called, voice echoing like thunder. "You've made your point. Walk away while you still have legs to carry you." Garin laughed, the sound guttural and unhinged. "We're done running. Where was your mercy when Damien exiled us? Where was your kindness when we were cast into the dirt like dogs?" Lucian's eyes narrowed. "You chose treason, and now we choose vengeance," Garen snarled, baring fangs. "Tell your precious Alpha if he dares to show his face. I'll tear out his throat myself." A low growl rumbled in Lucian's chest. Enough. He didn't wait for another word. Bones cracked and fur burst from flesh as Lucian shifted, his massive gray wolf towering above the others, his presence a force of nature. His golden eyes glowed like molten fire beneath the moon. Even the Gamma took an unconscious step back, his own wolf bristling under Lucian's raw power. One by one, the warriors followed suit, shifting into their wolves, howls piercing the sky as fangs were bared and claws sank into the earth. On the other side, Garen and his rogues, high on dark magic and blind to fear, shifted with a frenzied scream of battle lust. Then the forest exploded into chaos. Fur clashed against fur, teeth tore through flesh, and the ground shook with the weight of battle. Blood sprayed through the air, howls echoing like broken spirits. Lucian was a whirlwind of fury, slashing through rogue after rogue with terrifying precision. But beneath it all, the Gamma watched, fought, and waited for the moment Lucian's back would be turned, for the moment betrayal would be most devastating. The clash of steel, the ripping of flesh, and the thunderous growls of battle filled the forest air. Blood soaked the soil. Lucian's warriors were holding their ground, but the tide had begun to shift. The rogues, driven by the poisonous high of dark magic, fought with a frenzied madness that gave them unnatural strength. Lucian's flank had begun to strain under the pressure. Garen, fueled by magic and vengeance, had cut down 3 warriors on his own, his snarl gleaming with cruelty. But then, the ground trembled. A low growl, ancient and primal, rolled across the battlefield like a cold wind through bones. From the trees, Damien emerged with his elite warriors, each one draped in shadow and power, handpicked for their unmatched strength and loyalty. Their arrival alone sent a ripple through the battle. Every wolf, ally and enemy alike, froze. Then came silence. The rogues' snarls turned into stilled breath as their red-glazed eyes shifted toward the man who now stood at the edge of the battlefield, cloaked in a cold, seething rage. Damien. His eyes, no longer gold but crimson, locked onto Garen. "You dare attack my territory, Garen the traitor?" Damien's voice was like thunder cracking open the heavens. It seems banishment was too merciful. Garen growled, baring his teeth, but he took one step back, too late. With a deafening snarl, Damien shifted. Bones snapped. Black fur burst forth like a storm cloud. His form grew impossibly massive, larger than any wolf that had ever walked this land. His claws dug trenches into the earth. His red eyes glowed like blood-forged fire, fangs longer than daggers glistening with the hunger for justice. The sight shattered the rogues' confidence. Terror swept through them like a plague. Lucian's wolf let out a howl of renewed hope, and the warriors rallied. Damien didn't wait. He charged. The air trembled beneath his speed as he tore across the battlefield, an unstoppable force of vengeance. Garen didn't even have time to react. With a monstrous leap, Damien's jaws clamped down on Garen's throat. A sickening crunch echoed through the forest, then silence. Blood poured as Damien ripped through the traitor's body, tearing it apart with terrifying precision. The rogues faltered. Their leader, gone. Their false strength, shaken. Panic set in. They tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. Lucian and the warriors gave chase, and the elite warriors tore through the rogues with brutal efficiency. One by one, their cries were swallowed by the night. Howls of death and despair echoed beneath the blood moon. The Gamma stood frozen, half-shifted, watching the massacre unfold. He had been moments from betrayal, ready to strike Lucian down and claim his path to power. But seeing Damien's black wolf, a god of death ripping through enemies like paper, he swallowed hard, backing away. That thing would kill him in a breath. There would be no mercy, no negotiation, only death. He gritted his teeth and forced his claws to retract. Not yet. Meanwhile, the secret female spy slipped silently through the outer edge of the healer's woods, cloaked in shadow and scented with forest herbs. She had timed everything perfectly. The battle raged on, the perimeter should have been unguarded, but she stopped cold. 12 paces ahead, she saw them. Not regular guards, not patrol wolves. No, these were Damien's personal elite. Their aura was suffocating, dense, ancient, honed like sharpened blades. Each one carried an energy that pulsed like thunder through the trees. She cursed under her breath, her lips twisting with frustration. She couldn't take them, not alone. Not now. To attack would be suicide, and to retreat would be another failure she could not afford. Grinding her teeth, the spy slowly slinked back into the shadows, disappearing into the trees with silent fury boiling in her chest. Next time, she promised herself, she would find another way. Ella wouldn't stay protected forever. The battle was over. Not a single rogue was left alive. Damien stood tall among the blood-soaked ground, his black wolf slowly shifting back into his human form. His eyes swept the field of fallen enemies and injured warriors. The danger had passed, for now. He turned to his warriors, his voice calm but strong. "You all fought with courage and honor," he said. "Lucian, Gamma, every one of you, thank you." He nodded toward Lucian, who stood proud but battle-worn, and then toward the Gamma, who kept his head slightly lowered. Damien didn't notice the flicker of emotion in his eyes, but Lucian did. Damien gave his final orders. "Strengthen all borders. No one enters or leaves without strict checks. We cannot afford another surprise attack." Then, without wasting a second, he ran back toward the healer's house, Lucian and the Gamma following closely behind. As they stepped inside, the tension in Damien's chest loosened all at once. Ella was standing. She stood slowly, a little pale and shaky, but her back was straight, and there was life in her eyes again. Her golden hair fell over her shoulders, and a soft smile touched her lips the moment she saw him. Damien froze. His breath caught in his throat. Then he moved. He crossed the room in a few long strides and wrapped his arms around her, holding her tightly. And for the first time in years, the mighty Alpha let his tears fall. Hot, heavy tears of joy and relief. "You're awake," he whispered into her hair. "You're still here." Ella, eyes glistening, held him just as tightly. "I told you I'd fight," she whispered back. Lucian stood nearby, quietly watching. A bittersweet feeling pulled his chest, but he pushed it down. Ella was his Alpha's mate, and even if some part of his heart had once hoped otherwise, he knew better now. That chapter was closed before it even began. He smiled, a little sad, but truly happy for them both. "Welcome back, Ella," he said softly. The Gamma stepped forward next, wearing a warm smile. "I'm glad to see you up," he said, voice smooth. "You look strong again." Ella nodded politely. "Thank you." But behind his smile, rage brewed in the Gamma's heart. Why her, he thought. Why did she survive, when my Cece is dead, when my wife lies on her deathbed? His heart hardened like stone. His grief and jealousy had grown into something darker now. Lucian, always watching, didn't miss the flicker of hate in the Gamma's eyes, gone in a second, but not unnoticed. Something's wrong, he thought silently. He's hiding something. Lucian didn't speak it aloud, but deep down he made a quiet promise. I'll find out what it is, and I'll stop him before it's too late. The Gamma quietly excused himself from the healer's house. He gave one last polite smile to Damien and Ella, then turned and walked away, his steps calm, but his thoughts boiling with hatred. As the door shut behind him, Lucian leaned closer to Damien. "Alpha," he said in a low voice. "I don't trust him." Damien raised an eyebrow. "Who?" "The Gamma," Lucian replied. "There's something off about him. The way he looked at Ella, it wasn't joy, it was something else." Damien let out a light sigh and gave a small shake of his head. "Lucian, the man just lost his daughter, and his wife's barely holding on. Let's not go looking for shadows in daylight." "But you saw what happened," Lucian pressed gently. The flicker in his eyes, he's hiding something. Damien walked to Ella's side and gently wrapped an arm around her waist, helping her sit more comfortably on the bed. "He fought bravely today, Lucian. He stood with us. After that, I don't think he's the type to turn traitor. Not him." Lucian stared at Damien for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Of course, Alpha. Maybe I'm just overthinking it." Damien smiled, eyes softening as he looked at Ella again. "I just want to spend this evening with my mate. We've been through enough darkness." Lucian gave a light chuckle and changed the topic. "Then I'll step out for now, give you two some peace." He clapped Damien gently on the shoulder before heading toward the door. But as he reached the hallway, his smile faded. No, he thought silently. Something isn't right with the Gamma. I know what I saw in his eyes. Lucian's jaw tightened as he walked away from the healer's house, his mind racing. If he's hiding something, I'll find out. Even if I have to dig through every lie with my bare hands, I won't let another traitor bring harm to this pack. Or to Ella. Damien carefully tucked the blanket around Ella, watching her closely like she might disappear again if he dared to blink. I want to take you home, he whispered, brushing a soft kiss across her knuckles. I hate seeing you in this place. You belong beside me. Ella smiled gently, her voice a little weak but filled with warmth. I will be. Soon. Just then, the healer stepped into the room and cleared his throat. Alpha, she said with a respectful nod, as much as I understand your desire, Ella is not yet strong enough for travel or stress. She needs a few more days here. Her body is healing, but slowly. Damien's shoulders slumped, his face twisted into a sulk that made Ella laugh softly. You're sulking, she teased. I am not, he grumbled. Yes, you are, she replied, cupping his cheek. You're like a pup denied his favorite treat. I've missed you. Every second away from you was torture. His voice dropped, his golden eyes dark with emotion, and something hotter. Their gazes locked. Damien leaned in, brushing his lips gently across hers. The kiss deepened slowly, his hand cupping her face, then sliding to her waist as their bond flared between them. A soft gasp escaped Ella's lips as he hovered over her, his body radiating heat, his breathing growing heavier. He wanted her, so badly it hurt, but her skin was still pale, her body still weak. Damien's hand trembled as he stopped himself. No, he whispered against her lips, pressing his forehead to hers. Not like this, not when you're still healing. Ella exhaled shakily, eyes filled with love and desire. Thank you for loving me enough to wait. Damien kissed her knuckles again and pulled her gently into his arms. I'll wait forever if I have to. But Goddess, I hope it's not that long. Meanwhile, at the Gamma's estate, the atmosphere was tense. Servants moved around with careful steps, avoiding eye contact. The Gamma had just arrived when the head healer of the estate met him with grim eyes. She's worse, Gamma, the healer said. Her body is failing. She's not responding to anything anymore. The Gamma clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. Leave, he ordered through gritted teeth. He stormed into his private chamber, eyes blazing with fury. His daughter, dead. His wife, dying. And Damien, happy, victorious, and loved. As he paced, the air shifted. A soft knock came at his back door. The secret spy stepped in, cloaked and calm, her expression unreadable. Such pain, she said with a mock sigh, and yet no one mourns for you. Get to the point, he snapped. She tilted her head. Damien took your daughter's life. Lucian led the charge, and Ella, the White Wolf, has stolen the heart of the Alpha you were once close to. His face twisted with grief and rage. She stepped closer, her voice velvet poison. And what have you received in return? Nothing. No respect, no honor. The pack still whispers behind your back, calling you weak, replaceable. I am not weak, the Gamma snarled. No, she said with a slow smile. You're just waiting for your moment. Her voice lowered to a whisper. Help us finish this war. Let us take Lucian, then Damien. The rest will fall like leaves in the wind. His eyes gleamed with hatred. I want Damien's blood. I want Ella to suffer. And you shall have it, she purred, slipping a sealed scroll into his hand. This is what comes next. As she vanished into the shadows, the Gamma stared at the scroll. His heart thundered with rage, his mind poisoned with betrayal. He would not be forgotten. He would not be weak. He would burn the world if he had to. The falcon soared through the darkening sky, swift and silent, its sharp eyes scanning the land below. Clutched tightly in its claw was a sealed letter, marked with the sigil only Zara's secret spies would recognize. Outside the borders of Damien's territory, the three spies spotted the falcon landing near the ridge. One of them stepped forward, carefully taking the letter from its claws. With tense silence, they read the message. Their faces darkened. Without wasting time, they slipped through hidden paths until they reached the Rogue Hills, where Zara waited in a guarded shack. When she read the letter, her hands trembled. The female spy had succeeded. The Gamma was in. The plan to strike at Damien from within had begun. But what chilled Zara most was what would come next. She should have been pleased. But fear coiled in her stomach like a snake. Lila. She hadn't told her yet. Lila had warned her, threatened her, that failure would mean death. And though this letter brought progress, it wasn't the victory Lila wanted yet. Zara paced the cold ground of her tent, clutching the letter tightly. Maybe she could hide the truth just a little longer. Maybe. A sharp knock. Zara froze. Then the door creaked open, and one of Lila's dark-cloaked spies stepped inside, his voice hollow. "Queen Lila commands your presence." Her blood turned to ice. In the dark fortress, Zara dropped to her knees before Lila, trembling from head to toe. The room was thick with smoke and dark magic. Shadows slithered along the walls like living things. "You dare keep secrets from me?" Lila's voice was low, cold, deadly. Zara's mouth opened, but no words came. Her lungs tightened as magic wrapped around her throat. She gasped, "I didn't mean to. I swear, please, my queen, I just needed time. Just a little more." "You have failed me again." Lila rose from her throne, her eyes glowing like twin pits of hellfire. "And this time your life is not enough of a price." Zara screamed as her body was lifted from the ground by invisible chains of magic. Her wolf howled in agony inside her as Lila's power reached into her soul. "I will take what makes you fast, what makes you strong, what makes you useful." Lila's voice was like a whip of venom. "From this day on, your sense of smell is gone. Your warrior's bloodline halved." Zara shrieked as a cold blaze ripped through her chest and spine. She collapsed when the power released her. Gasping, her face pale, her eyes bloodshot, but she was alive. "Thank you," she rasped. "Thank you for sparing me." Lila didn't even look at her. She reached for the letter Zara had brought, read it with slow, careful eyes, then gave a cruel smile. "So the Gamma is angry," she whispered, "and someone has finally whispered the right poison into his ears." Her fingers tapped the parchment lightly. "This is good. Let the traitor rise from inside Damien's walls. Let his trusted warrior turn against him." Zara lay on the floor, shaking, her body broken but her heart beating, barely. Lila turned her gaze to the flames, her voice calm, satisfied. "Let them bleed each other, and when the time is right, I will strike what's left." She laughed softly, a sound like knives dragging across stone. While Damien and Ella remained at the healer's house, enjoying the comfort of each other's presence, the bond between them deepening each day, Lucien's mind stayed sharp and alert. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, especially with the Gamma. He trusted his instincts, and this time they screamed for caution. So, without telling Damien, Lucien quietly sent out one of his most trusted warriors. Selena. She was smart, quick, trained as one of the elite and deadly when needed. But for this mission, she needed to be silent, invisible, a shadow in the Gamma's home. With a new identity as a kitchen maid, Selena was placed inside the Gamma's estate the next morning. Dressed in plain clothes, with her hair wrapped in a scarf, Selena walked through the gates with a calm, humble smile. She kept her head down, speaking only when spoken to. She cleaned, cooked, observed. It didn't take long. The head maid of the estate, a stern older woman who disliked laziness, was quick to notice how efficient and quiet Selena was. Within days, Selena had won her trust. "You're sharp," the woman said one evening after dinner was served. "Most of the girls here are useless, but not you." "Thank you, ma'am," Selena said with a respectful bow. The head maid nodded. "The lady of the house is very sick, and her last helper was careless. I want you to take over from now on." Selena's eyes lit up with quiet excitement. It would be an honor. And just like that, Selena was moved into the private quarters of the Gamma's estate. She began tending to the Gamma's wife, bringing her herbal teas, fresh meals, and helping with her clothes and medicine. The poor woman barely spoke, her body weak and her face pale. But Selena paid attention to everything. She watched who came and went. She listened carefully behind closed doors. And when the Gamma returned home each evening, she quietly noted the change in his face, his deepening anger, his eyes that no longer carried grief, but bitterness. Selena didn't move too fast. She waited, she watched, and every night she secretly wrote down her findings in a coded scroll and sent them out using a trained sparrow only Lucien's elite used. Soon, the truth would begin to unfold, and Lucien would finally know what the Gamma was hiding. The soft light of dawn spilled through the windows of the healer's house, casting a warm glow over the room where Ella stood at last, strong, steady, and free of the weakness that had once held her down. Damien entered quietly, his breath catching at the sight of her. There she was, his mate, his Luna, his miracle. Her silver hair fell over her shoulders, her skin glowing softly in the morning light. When she turned and met his gaze, her silver eyes sparkled, filled with warmth, strength, and love. "Damien," she whispered, smiling gently, "I'm really better now." He crossed the room in a heartbeat, pulling her into his arms, holding her close like he never wanted to let go again. His heart raced, and before he could stop himself, tears welled in his eyes and slid down his cheeks. "I thought I'd lost you," Damien breathed, his voice thick with emotion. "I thought I'd lose everything." Ella touched his face, brushing away his tears with soft fingers. "But I'm here. I'm with you, and I'm not going anywhere." Damien kissed her forehead, then her cheeks, then her lips, soft at first, as if afraid she might break. But as she leaned into him, her hands tangling in his hair, the kiss deepened. Passion and relief flowed between them, their bond stronger than ever. Her heart beat fast against his chest. She felt his strength, his heat, his love pouring over her like a shield. And she welcomed it all. "Come home with me," Damien whispered against her lips, his voice trembling with longing. "No more waiting, no more distance. I need you by my side, Ella." Ella smiled, her eyes shining. "I want nothing more." Without waiting for the healer's permission this time, Damien gently lifted her into his arms, cradling her close as he carried her out. The healer, seeing the love between them and the light in Ella's face, simply smiled and nodded his blessing. The walk back to the Alpha's estate was slow, peaceful. For the first time in a long while, the air felt free of shadows. Damien whispered sweet words in Ella's ear, promises of love, protection, and a future they would build together. And when they reached his home, he carried her across the threshold, into the place that would now truly be theirs. That night, under the soft glow of the moon, Damien held Ella close as they lay together, no longer weighed down by fear or danger. He kissed every scar, every mark, as if vowing to cherish every part of her. And she gave herself to him fully, knowing she was safe, loved, and home. Selena's heart pounded in her chest as she stood in the hallway of the Gamma's estate, the sound of hushed voices drifting from behind a slightly ajar door. She had been assigned to deliver medicine to the Gamma's wife, who was still bedridden from the shock of her daughter's death, but something felt wrong. As she passed the door, she instinctively slowed, her ears catching the low murmurs from within. Her instincts, honed over years of being part of the elite warrior ranks, told her something was off. She leaned closer, pressing her ear to the crack, her pulse racing with unease. The voices inside grew clearer, the Gamma's deep, gravelly tones mixed with the female spy's sly whispers, their words carrying the weight of dangerous intentions. "The poison is ready," the spy said, her voice low but unmistakably malicious. "We'll strike Ella first, weaken her, make her suffer. Then Lucian will be next. After we've broken them, we take control. Damien won't stand a chance." Selena's breath caught in her throat as she heard the Gamma's response, his voice filled with quiet fury. "Yes, Ella, Damien's weakness. Once she's out of the way, nothing will stop us. Lucian will fall, and then Damien, I'll finally take what's mine." The coldness in his voice sent a chill down Selena's spine. She quickly pulled away from the door, heart pounding, her mind reeling with the betrayal she had just overheard. The plan was clear. They intended to poison Ella, Damien's mate, first, and then use her death as a means to break the Alpha. After that, they would target Lucian, and finally, Damien. The treachery was thick, suffocating the very air around her. Selena knew she had to warn Lucian immediately. She hurried back to her quarters, a sinking feeling in her stomach. She could not afford to waste time. If the Gamma and the spy had their way, Ella would be dead before the sun rose again. In the privacy of her room, Selena quickly took the secret sparrow, an enchanted bird she and Lucian had once used for communication, and attached a short message to its leg. With a whispered command, she sent the bird flying into the night sky, its wings cutting through the air with speed and purpose. But as the sparrow disappeared into the dark, Selena froze. Her eyes widened in sudden realization. A shadow crossed her path. A figure moved in the hallway, stopping just outside her door. She recognized the silhouette, the Gamma's personal servant, a man whose eyes were always filled with suspicion. Before she could even react, the servant glanced sharply in her direction, his eyes narrowing as if he had sensed something amiss. Selena's heart skipped a beat. He had been watching her closely ever since her promotion to the Gamma's personal maid. She hurriedly turned away and pretended to busy herself with a nearby shelf. But the servant's suspicious glare remained fixed on her. The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end as she heard his footsteps retreat, the door creaking slightly as he moved on. Selina clenched her fists, her anxiety building. She couldn't afford to let this man get in her way. But her attempt to warn Lucian had been cut off. She had to find another way. 2 long days passed without any sign of communication from Lucian. Selina's heart sank with each passing hour. Had her message been intercepted? Or worse, had something happened to Lucian? Determined not to wait any longer, Selina made a decision. She would visit Lucian herself. No more waiting. She couldn't risk Ella's life. She couldn't risk everything she had come to care for on a missed opportunity. As she prepared to leave, Selina's resolve hardened. She knew the danger of what she was about to do. The Gamma was dangerous, and the spy who worked alongside him was even more deadly. But Selina would not sit idly by while the life of the Alpha's mate was in jeopardy. With one final glance at the door, Selina slipped out of the estate under the cover of night, her heart pounding with fear and determination. Every step she took was a risk, but there was no turning back now. She had to warn Lucian, and together they would stop this madness before it was too late. The night air was still as the newly recruited guard, planted in the Gamma's estate by the secret female spy, sat quietly in the shadows of the guardhouse. His sharp eyes had been watching Selina ever since she rose too quickly through the ranks of the Gamma's household servants. Tonight, after seeing her send out the sparrow and act nervously afterward, his suspicions deepened. Without wasting time, he reached for a small piece of parchment, scribbled a quick message, and tied it to the leg of a black falcon, the mark of their secret network. The new maid, Selina, acted strange. She sent a sparrow, possibly to someone outside the Gamma's estate, probably the Beta or Alpha. I will watch her more and await your command. He let the falcon fly into the night, its wings silent against the wind. By dawn, the falcon returned with a reply. The guard untied the message and read the spy's neat, sharp writing. Good. You did well not to act too soon. Keep watching her. Gather proof before you strike. We can't risk a mistake. Report any move she makes. When the time comes, we'll deal with her swiftly. The guard smirked to himself, tucking the letter away. His orders were clear. He would keep his eyes on Selina's every step. One wrong move from her, and she would not live to see another day. Selina, meanwhile, unaware of the new danger closing in around her, continued her careful planning to reach Lucian. But time was running out, and the noose was tightening. Selina reached Lucian's estate just before dawn, slipping through the shadows and knocking softly at his door. Lucian opened it at once, his sharp eyes full of worry at seeing her face so pale and serious. Inside, she told him everything, how she had overheard the Gamma and the secret female spy, how they plotted to poison Ella first, then take out Lucian and Damien. Every word fueled the fire in Lucian's heart, his fists clenched, his wolf raging beneath his skin. That Gamma, Lucian growled, his voice low with fury. How dare he think of betraying the pack after all Damien has done for him, and after all Ella has suffered? His mind raced. He wanted to storm the Gamma's estate, drag him out, and tear the truth from him. But no, this had to be done right. Damien was finally finding peace again, spending sweet, quiet days with Ella after all her pain. Lucian couldn't disturb that happiness. Not yet. We'll handle this carefully. But Lucian said at last, his voice firm, we need to find out who that female spy is first. Once we know, I'll expose them both. No more shadows, no more secrets. Selina nodded, ready for his orders. Lucian gave them in detail, what she should say, how she should act, what signs to watch for. And when she rose to leave, he paused. I almost forgot, Lucian said, reaching into a small wooden box on the table. I heard you just turned 18 2 days ago. Happy birthday, Selina. He handed her a slender silver chain with a small wolf-shaped charm. The young warrior's eyes filled with tears, touched by his thoughtfulness. Without thinking, she hugged him tightly, her small frame pressed against him. The moment she did, Lucian froze. His wolf stirred deep inside him, a sudden blaze of heat and light roaring through his body. His heart pounded as the truth hit him hard. Mate, his wolf whispered it again and again, the bond flaring to life. His arms slowly came around her, holding her close as shock and wonder filled him. Selena pulled back slightly, sensing the change in him, her wide eyes meeting his. "Beta, Lucien?" she whispered. Lucien stared at her, his voice soft with awe. "Selena, you're my mate." And just like that, everything changed. As Lucien stood there holding Selena, the memories came flooding back, their long, quiet history that no one else truly knew. Years ago, Selena had been nothing but a frightened girl, an orphaned Omega sold to the pack as a slave. She had been brought to the Alpha's estate, where life was cruel and unforgiving for someone like her. Her wolf was weak, small, and often mocked by others, and that made her an easy target. Lucien remembered the first time he saw her. He had come upon a scene that still burned in his memory. The maids' quarters, filled with harsh voices and cruel laughter. Selena had been tied to a post, trembling as several maids raised whips ready to lash her until she bled. Punishment for some small imagined offense. Her wide, tear-filled eyes had met his, begging silently for mercy. Lucien had acted without a word. His fury had been swift and terrifying. He tore the whips from their hands, his voice a roar that echoed through the estate. The cowed maids fled from him, leaving Selena sobbing quietly, too weak to even stand. Something about her had struck him that day. Not pity, but something deeper. A good heart, pure and loyal, hidden beneath all that fear. He had carried her to safety, tended her wounds himself, and from that day on, Selena had belonged to his household. Lucien reassigned her, making her one of his personal staff, where no one dared lay a hand on her. But that wasn't enough. He'd seen strength in her, not in her wolf, but in her body, in her will. He began training her, slowly at first, teaching her to defend herself, to stand tall, to fight. And Selena had given him no reason to regret it. She had been loyal, brave, and determined. Again and again she proved her worth, earning her place among his most trusted elite warriors. They'd fought side by side, planned together, and in quiet moments shared words of respect that ran deeper than rank. It was no wonder they were closer than the others. She owed him everything, but what Lucien never fully realized until now was how much she had come to mean to him. And now, as he stared into her eyes, his wolf roaring the truth he hadn't seen before, he understood. She wasn't just his loyal warrior, she was his mate. Lucien's heart was heavy with worry. Now that Selena was his mate, the thought of sending her back to the Gamma's estate filled him with fear. The danger there was real, too real. What if something happened to her before he could stop it? "Lucien," Selena said softly, taking his hand. Her eyes were steady, though he could see the worry behind them. "You can't keep me hidden. If I disappear now, they'll know something is wrong. They'll be more suspicious. We can't risk it." Lucien clenched his jaw. "Then let's tell Damien everything now. He'll know what to do. I won't lose you, Selena, not after I just found you." But Selena shook her head gently. "Not yet. I'll be careful, I promise. But we can't draw attention too soon. Let me go back. Let me help you protect Ella and the pack, please." He hesitated, his wolf roared in protest, but deep inside he knew she was right. So before he let her go, Lucien did what his heart demanded. He marked her as his scent, his claim, his protection. The bond between them strengthened and Selena's eyes shone with quiet joy. Then, without waiting, he took her straight to Damien and Ella in secret. The Alpha and Luna were resting in the garden, enjoying a rare, peaceful moment together. When Lucien told them the truth, both were stunned at first. Then Damien's face broke into a proud grin, and Ella's eyes filled with happy tears. "Oh, Selena," Ella said, pulling her into a warm embrace. "I'm so happy for you. You deserve this. You deserve to be loved and cherished." That simple kindness from Ella touched Selena's heart deeply. In that moment, she silently vowed, "I will protect you, my Luna, no matter the cost." And Lucien, seeing the two women he cared for most standing together, made his own vow. "I will protect them both, even if it takes my last breath." Later, when they returned to his estate, Lucien held Selena close one more time, giving her every warning he could. "Be careful, trust no one, I'll be watching over you. Always." Then, as she left to return to the Gamma's estate, Lucien sent another of his trusted elite female warriors to follow, this one disguised as a new kitchen maid. Her only mission: protect Selena and report everything back. The game had changed, the stakes were higher, and Lucien would not fail. The moment Selena stepped back into the Gamma's estate, she barely had time to catch her breath before the secret male spy appeared. His eyes were sharp, his smile tight. "I need a word with you," he said, his tone calm but firm. Selina's senses sharpened. She followed him a little away from the others, keeping her guard up. "Where have you been?" he asked smoothly, his gaze watching her every move. "You disappeared for some time." Selina tilted her head slightly, keeping her voice polite but steady. "Why do you ask? You're not in charge of the female staff, are you?" The spy forced a chuckle. "Ah, you see, the Gamma's wife needed her herbal medicine urgently, but no one could find you. We were worried. That's all." Selina's heart raced, but she kept her face calm. She knew he was trying to trap her into saying something. "The head maid sent me on a personal errand," she said softly. "That's where I was." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Is that so?" He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "Strange, no one seemed to know about this errand." Before he could push further, a young maid came rushing down the corridor. "Selina, the head maid is calling for you at once." The spy straightened, his face twisting with annoyance. He couldn't risk making a scene. He forced a smile, though his eyes burned with hidden rage. "Ah, I see. Apologies for bothering you, Selina." Selina nodded gently, masking her relief. Without another word, she turned and followed the maid, feeling his gaze burning into her back. As she walked away, the spy clenched his fists, fury boiling inside him. "She's hiding something. I'll find out what." After walking a little distance, the young maid suddenly stopped, glancing around nervously. Selina frowned in confusion. "Why are we stopping?" she asked, looking around as well. The maid lowered her voice and leaned closer. "I did it to help you," she whispered. "That man, he's dangerous. His presence around the maids always means trouble. And besides, he's the head maid's sworn enemy. If he's questioning you, he's up to no good." Selina blinked, studying the maid's face. Something about her seemed unfamiliar. She was sure she hadn't seen this girl before. "I don't think I've met you," Selina said carefully. "What's your name? Where do you work?" The maid gave a quick smile. "No wonder. I handle the Gamma's kitchen storeroom. I don't get to come out much, so we don't cross paths often." Hearing this, Selina felt relieved. The tension in her chest eased, and she gave the girl a grateful smile. "Thank you for stepping in. I really appreciate it." She offered her hand. "I'm Selina." The maid took it. "Glad to help. I'm Rena. It's good to have a friend in this place." What Selina didn't know was that this meeting was no accident. Rena had earlier reported herself to the head maid, gaining proper placement in the kitchen storeroom so no one would question her presence. Everything had been carefully planned. That night, after finishing her duties, Selina retired to her room. Sitting by the small window, she sent a secret message to Lucien, reporting everything that had happened, including her encounter with the strange maid who had saved her from the male spy's questions. Wanting to be cautious on all fronts, Selina also visited the head maid the next morning. With a kind smile, she offered the woman a small pouch of coins and a pair of fine bracelets. "A token of respect," she said sweetly. "I just want to be sure we're on good terms." The head maid's eyes gleamed with greed as she accepted the gifts. "You're a smart girl, Selina," she said. "No trouble will come your way as long as I'm here." Selina bowed her head respectfully, but deep inside, she remained alert. In this house full of hidden plots, she knew every step could be dangerous. That night, under the cover of darkness, Rena sent out her message. Using the small sparrow Lucien had provided, she carefully tied her note to its leg, watching as it flew off into the night sky. In her report, she described everything: the male spy's strange questioning of Selina, his sharp interest, and the way he had masked his true intentions behind false concern. Rena ended her letter with a warning. "He's watching her closely, Beta. I sense danger in his eyes." By dawn, Lucien had received both letters, the one from Selina detailing her encounter and her cautious actions, and the one from Rena confirming the spy's growing suspicions. Lucien read them in the quiet of his study, his heart heavy with worry, but also swelling with pride at Selina's strength and Rena's loyalty. With a deep breath, he took up his pen and wrote back to Selina first. "My beloved mate, I cannot express how proud I am of your bravery and wisdom. Every word you send eases my heart, even in these troubling times. Please continue to stay cautious, and remember, you are never alone. My thoughts, my strength, my heart, they are always with you. Stay safe, my light. Soon, this darkness will pass, and I will have you at my side forever." Next, he wrote to Rena, "Your keen eyes and quick action have earned my deepest respect. I thank you for standing watch over Selena and the Gamma's estate. I trust you. Keep your guard high. Watch both the Gamma and anyone who moves in the shadows. Protect Selena at all costs. I'm counting on you." Lucian tied the notes to 2 separate sparrows and sent them off into the night, his mind already racing with plans on how to expose the traitors without alerting them too soon. As the birds disappeared into the sky, he whispered to himself, "I will protect them. I will protect my pack, no matter the cost." Selena sat quietly in the small corner of her shared quarters, the dim light of the candle flickering as she untied the tiny scroll from the sparrow's leg. As her eyes moved over Lucian's words, his heartfelt praise, his romantic promise of protection, her cheeks flushed softly, and a warm smile tugged at her lips. "My light, his heart is with me," she whispered to herself, holding the note close to her chest. His words filled her with strength. Whatever danger awaited, she would face it, for him, for Ella, for the pack. Meanwhile, Rena, sitting alone near the outer gardens of the Gamma's estate, received her own letter. The beta's words of respect and trust filled her with pride. She reread the line, "I trust you. Protect Selena at all costs." Unaware of Lucian's newfound bond with Selena, Rena's heart soared at the thought that he valued her so deeply. A wild smile spread across her face, and quietly she vowed, "I will not fail him. I will prove myself worthy of his praise." Her determination burned stronger than ever. The Shadows plot. Elsewhere, under the cover of night, the male spy moved through the shadows, his mind turning over his plan. He had written to the female spy again, reporting everything: Selena's careful words, her refusal to fall for his traps, and the small cracks he thought he could exploit. The female spy's reply had come swiftly through a falcon's message. "Good. Earn her trust, make her admit her secrets. And when she does, end her. Do it cleanly. No mistakes." His eyes darkened as he read the words. His orders were clear. He would wait, he would watch, and at the right moment, he would strike. As days passed, Rena and Selena's bond deepened. The 2 young women often shared quiet smiles and whispered conversations while working, trusting each other in the dangerous web they were entangled in. But in the shadows, the male spy watched them both like a wolf waiting for its prey. His mind twisted with plans. Get close, divide them, or destroy them both. When Rena noticed his gaze lingering too long, or his footsteps always too near, her instincts flared. Without hesitation, she sent a discreet message to Lucian, detailing the male spy's behavior and her growing unease. Lucian's response came swiftly. "Good work. Switch roles with Selena immediately. Protect her at all costs. Do not let him near her." Rena acted quickly. With more well-placed bribes, bracelets that sparkled in the torchlight and coins that spoke louder than words, she convinced the head maid to reassign her to care for the Gamma's wife, while Selena was moved to manage the kitchen storeroom. When Selena learned of the sudden change, confusion and hurt filled her heart. She confronted Rena privately, her voice low but trembling. "Why, Rena? Why would you take my place with the Gamma's wife? Did I do something wrong? Or are you trying to push me aside?" Rena's chest tightened, guilt weighing on her. She wanted to explain, to tell Selena that it was for her safety, that Lucian himself had ordered it. But she knew the walls had ears. Too many spies lurked in the shadows. To reveal the truth now would endanger them both. I only wanted to ease your burden, Selena," Rena said softly, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You've worked so hard. The storeroom is safer, quieter. Please don't think badly of me." Selena stared at her, torn between hurt and understanding. She nodded slowly, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Exactly what the male spy had hoped for. In the dark corridors of the Gamma's estate, the game of shadows continued, and the bond between the 2 brave women was at risk of being broken. As the days passed, the quiet distance between Selena and Rena widened like a crack in stone. Selena, still nursing the sting of what felt like betrayal, kept to herself in the kitchen storeroom. She focused on her duties, but the warmth she once felt for Rena had cooled. Each night, she sent letters to Lucian, pouring out her confusion and hurt. Lucian, reading her words by candlelight, felt the ache in his heart. He longed to tell her the truth, that Rena's reassignment had been his doing for Selena's own protection. But he knew the risk was too great, so instead he wrote back gently, his words meant to soothe her. Sometimes things happen for a reason we can't yet see. Trust me. My heart, this may be for your good. Stay strong, stay careful, I'm always with you in spirit. Selina clutched his letter close, comforted, yet still torn. But in the shadows, the male spy watched. His eyes gleamed with malice as he noticed the cold glances, the lack of smiles between the two women. The crack was there, and he intended to shatter it. With careful planning, he enlisted 2 greedy maids, women easily swayed by the promise of silver. They spread the poison with whispered gossip in the corridors, near enough for Selina to overhear. "Did you hear?" One maid whispered to the other, loud enough to echo off the stone walls. Rena caught Selina with one of the guards. "I heard she begged Rena not to tell the Gamma. Disgraceful." "Shameful," the other agreed, eyes wide with fake horror. No wonder Rena switched duties. She probably couldn't bear the sight of her after that. Selina froze, her breath catching in her throat. Shock, fury, and heartbreak collided inside her. How could Rena say such things? After all they'd shared. After all I've done to stay loyal. Her fists clenched at her sides, but she said nothing, swallowing the bitter taste of betrayal. Meanwhile, hidden in the shadows, the male spy smirked. His trap was working perfectly. A rift deepens. Selina could no longer take the whispers, the stares, the lies that seemed to spread like wildfire through the Gamma's estate. Hurt and angry, she found Rena alone and confronted her. "Why, Rena?" Selina's voice trembled. "Why are you saying these things about me? I thought we were friends." Rena's eyes widened in shock. "Selina, no, I never said any of that. I swear to you, those are lies. Someone is trying to cause trouble between us." But the pain in Selina's heart was too strong. She shook her head, tears burning in her eyes. "I don't believe you. You changed ever since they reassigned us. You betrayed me." Before Rena could say more, the head maid stormed into the room. Furious over the growing gossip, she reassigned Selina to the laundry room, viewed as the lowest post. Selina felt bitter, humiliated, and deeply sad. Far away, Lucian felt it all through their mate bond. The wave of her pain hit him hard. Without delay, he wrote to Rena, asking what was happening. Rena replied honestly about the situation, but in her jealousy, she added, "Selina is letting small matters cloud her judgment. She's being childish. I'll keep an eye on her." Lucian read her words carefully. Though annoyed by Rena's attitude, he chose not to reveal Selina as his mate. Instead, he wrote back, "Stay focused on your mission. Let things calm down, and after a few days, try to explain to Selina again. Don't lose sight of why you're there." Then he sent a private letter to Selina, his words warm, filled with comfort. "My brave one, I feel your pain, and it breaks my heart. Please don't let the lies of others dim your spirit. You are stronger than this. Hold on a little longer. I will find a way to bring you back to me safely." When Rena received Lucian's instructions, she started to wonder deeply. Why does he care so much about Selina? Her heart, already aching from her secret love for Lucian, burned with curiosity. What is she to him? Meanwhile, Lucian sat alone in his study, staring out into the night. His heart raced with worry. "I can't leave her there much longer. I must find a way to bring her out before they destroy her, before I lose her forever." The night air was thick with silence when the female spy once again slipped into the Gamma's estate, cloaked in shadow. The soft creak of the old wooden door as it closed behind her seemed to echo through the dimly lit room, where the Gamma sat alone, head bowed, his mind a storm of bitterness and regret. Her voice broke the stillness, smooth as silk but cold as ice. "It is time, Gamma. The waiting is over. The plan must begin." He lifted his gaze to her, his face drawn, eyes sunken from sleepless nights. "Time?" he echoed, his voice hoarse. "Time for what?" She stepped closer, her eyes glinting with malice. "Time to strike. Damien, Lucian, Ella, they've had their reign long enough. Now they must fall, and you must rise." The Gamma swallowed hard, his heart racing. A part of him longed for power, for revenge, but the other, what was left of the honorable warrior he once was, trembled at the path before him. "How?" he asked, though he already feared the answer. The spy's smile was thin, cruel. "Simple. We need all three in one place. A place where they feel safe. A place where they won't suspect treachery." She leaned in, her voice a whisper laced with poison. "We need to give them a reason to come together, a reason to lower their guard." The Gamma frowned, thinking, "How? What reason could I give without raising suspicion?" She tilted her head, studying him. You have only two choices, Gamma. Grief or joy. Grief will bring them in sympathy, joy will bring them in celebration, but it must be convincing. For a long moment, the Gamma said nothing. Then he shook his head. No, I cannot fake joy. And what grief would I show that would not be hollow? The spy's gaze sharpened, her voice turning deadly soft. Your wife. He froze. His blood ran cold. What? Your wife, she repeated, her tone calm as if discussing the weather. End her suffering, set her free. And in doing so, set yourself free. They will come to comfort you, to honor her memory. And in that moment we strike. No, he whispered, shaking his head, horror dawning in his eyes. No, I can't. But the spy was patient, her words like a snake coiling tighter. She's already dying, isn't she? Every day she lingers is another day of pain. For her, for you. Let it end. Let her death mean something. Let it serve a greater purpose. He covered his face with his hands, battling the storm within. This is monstrous. She crouched before him, her voice soft but cutting deep. And what of Damien? Was it not monstrous when he condemned your daughter? When he shamed your name? When he let your wife wither in sorrow? You owe him nothing but vengeance. Slowly his hands fell away from his face. His eyes, once clouded with doubt, now burned with a twisted mix of grief and fury. How? A satisfied smile spread across her face as she drew a small vial from the folds of her cloak. Add this to Lucian's cup when the time comes. The poison is slow, subtle. His senses will fail him one by one, sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell, and then his life. No one will trace it to you. The Gamma stared at the vial, his breath shallow. His hand trembled as he took it. The spy straightened, her eyes gleaming with triumph. 3 days, Gamma. 3 days to prepare. When the time comes, you will be the instrument of their downfall. And soon after, Alpha. She melted into the shadows, leaving him alone with the vial of death, the weight of his choice heavy on his soul. He looked down at the poison in his palm, his heart pounding. His wife's gentle face flashed through his mind. The wife he once cherished, now reduced to a pawn in his thirst for revenge. His grip tightened around the vial as the final threads of his honor frayed. 3 days, he told himself, stealing his heart. 3 days, and everything will change. For days, Lucian barely slept. The weight of his decision pressed down on him like a boulder crushing his chest. Every moment Selena remained inside the Gamma's estate felt like a blade at his throat, a danger he couldn't control, a mistake he regretted deeply. I should have never let her go back. The thought haunted him over and over until he could barely focus on anything else. The pack's safety, the defense patrols, even his loyalty to Damien, all seemed to blur against the fear of losing his mate. His mate, a bond so precious, so rare, and he had sent her straight into the lion's den. Pacing inside his private study, Lucian's mind raced, searching for a solution. How do I pull her out without raising suspicions? How do I do it without endangering the mission? Every option felt like a dead end, until one dangerous, painful idea began to take root. If she were disgraced, cast out by the Gamma's household itself, no one would question why she had to leave. No one would tie it to me. The thought sickened him, but it made sense. The headmaid, furious as she was after the last fabricated scandal, wouldn't spare Selena a second chance. If the right push came, Selena would be thrown out swiftly and publicly. Lucian clenched his fists, his wolf restless beneath his skin. He hated the plan, hated it, but he saw no other way that would protect Selena without exposing their secrets too soon. He dropped into his chair, pulled out parchment and ink, and began to write, his hand trembling slightly as he forced himself to commit to the plan. To Rena, your dedication has not gone unnoticed, and I thank you for your loyalty. But now I must ask for something more, something difficult. We must get Selena out. It's no longer safe for her, and I won't risk her life any longer. You must help create the final scandal that will have her chased out of the Gamma's estate. Spread whispers, plant the seed that she is sneaking about with the guard again. I know it will pain you to do this, but trust me, this is for her protection. The headmaid will not forgive a second disgrace. Act carefully. We cannot risk the female spy catching wind of this before it's done. Once Selena is out, I will see to her safety myself. Be strong, Rena. I am counting on you. Lucian sealed the letter, his heart heavy with guilt. He stared at the wax seal for a long moment, his thoughts dark and filled with blame. This is my fault, all of it. His mind flashed with memories of Selina's soft smile, the way her eyes lit up when she read his letters, how she'd hugged him the day he discovered she was his mate. And now I'm the one forcing her into disgrace, into pain. His wolf howled in his heart, but Lucian hardened himself. Better she feels hurt for a moment than she dies because I hesitated. He stood, his resolve set. He would see this through. And when Selina was safely out, he swore it, he would never again let danger come so close to her. Rena's hands trembled slightly as she unfolded Lucian's letter, her heart racing faster than she cared to admit. The moment she saw his familiar handwriting, that seal she always longed to see addressed only to her, something warm and foolish flickered in her chest. But as she read his words, that warmth turned cold. Selina. Again. Always Selina. His instructions were clear. Painfully clear. She was to carry out the final act, the one that would bring Selina's stay at the Gamma's estate to an end. She was to weave the last web of whispers, let the headmaid's fury do the rest, and ensure Selina was cast out in shame. Rena exhaled slowly, lowering the parchment, her thoughts spiraling. Why? She wondered bitterly. Why does he care so much about her? What is she to him that he'd risk so much, go this far just to protect her? Her heart clenched as an unwelcome truth wormed its way into her mind. There's something between them. She'd seen it in his careful words, felt it in his desperation. Lucian was a man of duty, honor. He wouldn't move this way for a common warrior or maid, not unless she meant something more. Rena's jaw tightened, her wolf stirring in restless unease. She had spent years in silent longing, years convincing herself that when she turned 18, just a few short weeks away, the moon goddess would finally bind their souls, that Lucian would look at her the way she dreamed he would. And now it felt like all of that was slipping away. No, she told herself, her gaze hardening. If this is some way of marking boundaries, then so be it. Let her be gone. Let her be chased out in disgrace, and let Lucian see that she was never worthy of such protection. Her fingers crumpled the edge of the letter slightly before she forced herself to smooth it out again. Duty came first, always. But love? Love was a battlefield she wasn't ready to surrender. Setting the plan in motion. That night, Rena moved quietly through the estate, her mind sharp, her heart clouded with resolve and jealousy. She whispered carefully crafted lies to the right ears. The gossip-prone kitchen girls, the laundress who was always eager for scandal, the old maid who lived for drama. She's at it again, sneaking out late at night. I saw her near the guards' quarters. Don't say you heard it from me. I heard the head maid's already suspicious. You know Selina, too pretty for her own good, always smiling at the wrong men. Word spread like wildfire, just as Lucian had hoped, and Rena fueled it with quiet precision, watching as the web of deceit tightened around Selina. Rena's secret resolve. But beneath her outward calm, Rena's emotions churned like a storm. She told herself it was for the mission, for Lucian, for the pack. But deep inside, she knew this was also for her. If Selina's presence is a threat, then I will protect what should be mine, she thought fiercely, her wolf snarling in agreement. When it comes to love, I don't care who my friends or enemies are. I'll fight for what's mine. The final trap. Rena paced quietly in her quarters, the weight of her plan heavy on her heart. Words alone won't be enough, she thought grimly. The head maid may scold her, but won't send her away on gossip alone. I need proof, or something that looks like it. Her sharp mind worked swiftly, and soon she summoned one of the maids, a greedy girl, quick with lies if the price was right. With a few silver coins slipped into her palm, Rena gave the order. Tell that guard, the one always near the courtyard, that his new uniform is ready in the laundry room. Make sure he goes tonight, and lock the door behind him. Don't let them out until the right eyes see. The maid nodded eagerly, the promise of coin driving her loyalty. The setup. That evening, as the moon rose high over the Gamma's estate, the trap unfolded. The unsuspecting guard, grateful for the news, made his way to the laundry room. Inside, he found no uniform, only the startled Selina, folding linens by the dim light of a lantern. Before either could react, the maid quietly closed the door, turning the key in the heavy lock. The click echoed ominously in the small room. What's happening? Selina demanded, confusion flashing in her eyes. The guard tried the handle. It's locked. Damn it. Panic set in as they both pushed at the door, then the small window. Their combined effort finally forced the old window open just enough to squeeze through. But just as Selena was halfway out, a loud, furious voice rang out behind them. The headmaid's wrath. There you are, just like I was warned. The headmaid stormed forward, her face red with rage, followed by a crowd of whispering, eager maids. Selena barely had time to turn before the headmaid's hand cracked across her cheek, the slap echoing like thunder. You filthy disgrace, caught sneaking with a guard in my laundry room? After all the chances I gave you? No, it's not what it looks like. Selena's voice shook with shock and shame. I swear, I don't know how. Silence, the headmaid spat. You'll join him in the dungeon. The guard, pale with fear, was dragged away by 2 estate guards, his protests falling on deaf ears. Rena's calculated move. Just as the headmaid was about to summon the guards for Selena, Rena rushed in, feigning breathless shock. What's happened? She gasped, eyes wide. Selena? No, this can't be true. She's a disgrace to the estate, the headmaid hissed. I'll see her locked up with that fool of a guard. No, please, Rena said, her voice soft, pleading. Don't imprison her. Just send her away. Spare the Gamma's house any more shame. Let her leave quietly. The headmaid hesitated, then spat her judgment. Fine, pack your things and get out. I don't want to see your face again. Selena's heart sank. She tried to protest, but the headmaid's glare warned her to think twice. Head bowed, cheeks burning with humiliation, she returned to her quarters to gather her few belongings. The goodbye and the shadow. Rena found her as she tied up the last of her bundle. I'm sorry, Rena whispered, her voice sweet as honey, but with a flicker of triumph hidden deep in her eyes. This is for the best. Maybe one day you'll understand. Come, I'll walk you out. Selena said nothing, the sting of betrayal too fresh. The friend she trusted most had let this happen. In silence, they crossed the courtyard. The night air was cold, the Gamma's estate dark and watchful. At the gate, Rena embraced her softly, murmuring soothing words. But inside, her thoughts churned. I'll follow you. I'll see where you go, who you run to. I'll find out what you are to Lucian, and why he'd risk so much for you. As Selena disappeared down the dark road toward Lucian's estate, Rena melted into the shadows, determination burning in her chest. The night was cool, and still as Selena approached Lucian's estate, her steps heavy with sorrow. Her heart ached, not just from the sting of humiliation, but from the bitter taste of betrayal. Tears clung to her lashes, and by the time she reached the entrance, she was trembling. Inside, Lucian stood at the window, his gaze fixed on the path beyond the gate. He'd felt her pain through their bond, sharp, raw, and undeniable. His heart had burned with helplessness, but now, as he saw her approach, all he wanted was to take that pain away. The door opened, and Selena stumbled in, her eyes red from crying. Lucian, her voice broke. It was awful. They humiliated me. She couldn't finish. The tears spilled over, and she lowered her head, ashamed. Without a word, Lucian closed the distance between them, gathering her into his arms. He held her tightly, his warmth chasing away the cold that clung to her. Shh, he whispered, his voice low and full of emotion. You're safe now, my love. No one will ever hurt you again. Selena sobbed softly against him, the weight of everything crashing down. Lucian cupped her face, brushing away her tears with his thumbs. His gaze was tender, fierce in its protectiveness. And then, without thinking, he lowered his lips to hers, kissing her gently, as if promising with that kiss to shield her from every storm. Meanwhile, Rena moved through the night like a shadow. Her curiosity, fed by jealousy and suspicion, had driven her to follow Selena. When she reached Lucian's estate, she hesitated. This was dangerous, foolish even, but she had to know. Tread carefully, Rena. Just a quick look, she told herself. She made her way toward his chambers, slipping through the servants' paths like a ghost. At first she saw nothing, just darkness and silence. Maybe she means nothing to him after all, Rena thought, her heart lightening a little. Maybe I imagined everything. But then, faint voices reached her ears, a man's soft murmur, a woman's quiet sob. Her pulse raced. Determined, she crept to the window of Lucian's room. Using her warrior's agility, she scaled the wall, steadying herself on the narrow ledge beneath the window. What she saw inside made her blood run cold. Lucian, holding Selena close. Lucian, brushing away her tears. Lucian, kissing Selena as if she were the only one in his world. A wave of rage, betrayal, and heartbreak crashed over Rena. Her hip faltered as emotion overtook her reason. The shock made her hand slip. With a gasp, she lost her balance and fell. The fall. The thud of her body hitting the ground echoed in the night. Pain shot through her left leg as it twisted beneath her. Gritting her teeth, she pushed herself up, ignoring the fire in her muscles. Inside the chamber, Lucian's head snapped up. His wolf stirred, sensing the presence that had been so near. But Rena was already limping away, vanishing into the shadows before she could be caught. Every step sent pain lancing through her leg, but she didn't stop. The image of that kiss burned in her mind, feeding the storm that now raged inside her. Lucian turned toward the window, frowning, his senses on high alert. But whoever had been there was already gone. Rena's silent breakdown. The night air was cold, but Rena barely felt it as she stumbled back into the Gamma's estate. The pain in her leg a dull throb compared to the storm raging in her heart. Her mind replayed the scene over and over, Lucian's arms wrapped around Selena, his lips pressed tenderly against hers. How could this happen? Her breath came in ragged gasps as she reached her room. But instead of going inside, she collapsed onto the low stone ledge beside the corridor. The moonlight bathed her tear-streaked face as she buried her head in her hands, sobbing quietly. Why? She cried in her heart. Why does the world hate me so much? Her thoughts spilled from her lips in broken whispers. I thought the moon goddess would give me a mate who'd save me, lift me from this life. I thought Lucian was meant for me, that he'd see me. But no. An Omega like me. She stole him. She stole what should have been mine. Her voice cracked, heavy with grief and bitterness. The male spy's approach. Unbeknownst to her, the male spy had been passing through the corridor, silent as a shadow. He stopped dead at the sound of her voice, hidden by the dark. His sharp ears caught every word, and a cruel smile curled on his lips. So, this proud little warrior has a broken heart, and over Lucian no less. This is useful, very useful. Seeing his chance, he stepped forward, letting his boots scuff the stone deliberately. Rena froze, her head snapped up and her tear-filled eyes widened in alarm. You, she breathed, scrambling to rise, her injured leg protesting with pain. She tried to limp past him, but he blocked her way with ease. No need to run, warrior, he said smoothly, his voice low, full of false sympathy. I heard nothing. Well, nothing except the pain of a woman scorned. I see now, even the strongest of us can break. Rena's heart raced. Foolish, Rena. She cursed herself. You let your guard down. Now look. I don't know what you're talking about, she snapped, trying to push past him, but he caught her arm, gently but firmly enough to stop her. Wait, he said, his eyes glinting in the moonlight. Why hide your pain? You and I. We're not so different. The high and mighty of this pack, they don't see us. They use us. Toss us aside. But together, maybe we can change that. His words were honeyed poison, dripping into her vulnerable heart. Let go of me, Rena hissed, but her voice wavered. Part of her, wounded, lost, wanted to listen. He released her arm, stepping back. As you wish. But remember this night, Rena. Remember who offered to stand by you when your so-called beta cast you aside for an Omega. Then, without waiting for her reply, he melted back into the shadows, leaving Rena shaken, confused, and dangerously tempted. The male spy slipped silently into his small, dimly lit quarters. His lips curled into a smirk as he unrolled a scrap of parchment. The ink glistened as he swiftly penned down his latest discovery. Rena's hidden heartbreak, her foolish whispers about Lucian, and the crack forming in her loyalty. She is vulnerable, he wrote, a tool waiting to be shaped. With just the right push, she will turn against them willingly. Finishing the message, he sealed it tightly and sent it off using their trained falcon, the bird vanishing into the night sky like a silent omen. The female spy's plan. Far away, in a hidden refuge near the pack's outer borders, the female spy received his letter as dawn's first light painted the sky red. Her eyes gleamed with satisfaction as she read, So the little warrior's heart is broken. How convenient. Without delay, she scrawled a response in her precise hand. Win her over. Completely. Make her trust you. Within 2 days, she must see us as her only hope. She sent the message back on the falcon's leg, her mind already racing ahead to the next stage of their plan. Zara's desperation. Moments later, the female spy prepared another letter, this time for Zara. The note detailed the progress, how Rena's weakness would soon be exploited, how the Gamma's plan was nearly ready. When the letter reached Zara, she could barely hold it steady. Her hands trembled, her body weak from the dark magic slowly eating at her insides. Each day she felt her strength slipping, her once proud warrior's body now a shadow of itself. But the news. Oh, the news stirred something like hope within her. Clutching the parchment, she forced her aching legs to carry her to Lila. Lila's dark reward. Lila sat upon her dark throne of stone, her eyes half-lidded with cruel amusement as she watched Zara stagger into the chamber. More news, Zara, or more failure? Lila's voice was smooth, deadly. Zara fell to her knees, panting. Good news, my queen, it's working. The female spy reports progress. The Gamma is ready. Rena's loyalty is cracking. Lila rose, her long fingers curling in satisfaction. Good, very good. She turned, plucking a small vial from her dark shelf, a potion of swirling black and crimson. She held it out, a wicked smile on her lips. A reward for your efforts, Zara. Drink. You'll feel your strength return. Zara's eyes filled with desperate gratitude. Thank you, my queen. She drank deeply, the bitter liquid burning her throat. For a moment, power surged through her veins, the weakness fading. But what she didn't see was the glint of malice in Lila's eyes, the knowledge that each drop of dark magic tightened the chains around Zara's soul. Let her feed on my power, Lila thought darkly. Let her become mine entirely. And as Zara bowed low, Lila whispered to herself, soon, Damien's pack will crumble, and no one will stand against me. The days felt longer now. Lucien sat at the edge of his desk, his sharp eyes fixed on the unopened window, where the morning breeze carried no comforting news, no letter, no sign, no update. His heart, once hardened by duty, now beat with restless worry. Since Selena's safe return to his side, their mate bond had grown stronger, a comforting thread that kept his spirit steady. But today, that thread quivered with unease. Why hasn't Rena written? He wondered, his fingers tightening around the hilt of his dagger. She had been diligent before, always reporting with precision. But ever since Selena left the Gamma's estate yesterday, there had been silence, a silence that now felt heavy, dangerous. Unable to sit still, Lucien rose abruptly, his wolf pacing beneath his skin. He needed answers, needed to act. Without delay, he made his way to the Alpha's estate. Lucien's suggestion. Inside Damien's study, the Beta tried to keep his voice casual, masking the urgency in his heart. Alpha, Lucien began, I was thinking perhaps we should pay the Gamma a visit. A gesture of respect, perhaps to see how his wife fares. It might strengthen unity within the pack. Damien leaned back in his chair, his sharp gaze thoughtful but calm. A visit? He echoed, brow raised. I see no reason for it now, okay? The Gamma may misread our intentions, especially with his wife's failing health. I heard only hours ago that she slipped into unconsciousness again. Lucien froze, his mind raced. Unconscious? His jaw clenched. Why didn't Rena report this? Could she be in danger? Or worse, compromised? But he forced his expression into neutrality. He couldn't let Damien suspect anything. Not yet. Is something troubling you, Lucien? Damien's voice was low, perceptive, eyes narrowing slightly as he studied his Beta's stiff posture. Lucien shook his head, forcing a faint smile. No, Alpha. Just concerned for the Gamma's well-being. Nothing more. Damien nodded, accepting the answer, though he watched Lucien a moment longer before returning to his work. The promise. Back at his own estate, Lucien paced the length of his chamber, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him. When Selena entered, her heart sank at the sight of him. His usual calm fractured, his aura restless. Lucien? She asked gently, approaching him. What's wrong? For a moment he hesitated. He hated to burden her further, but the truth tumbled out. It's Rena. She hasn't sent word since you left the Gamma's estate, and now, with the news of the Gamma's wife, I fear something may have happened. Selena's eyes softened with concern. Without thinking twice, she took his hand. Then let me go back, she offered quietly. Let me find out what's happening. Let me help. But Lucien gripped her hands tightly, his eyes darkening with terror at the very thought. No, his voice was firm, almost desperate. Never again. I won't risk you. Not for this. Not for anything. Lucien, no. He cupped her face, his thumbs brushing her cheeks, his gaze fierce and pleading. Promise me, Selena. Promise you won't endanger yourself for my sake. I couldn't bear it. You are mine now, and I will protect you." Selena saw the raw fear in his eyes, felt it through their bond, the fear of losing what he'd only just found. And so, with a soft sigh, she nodded, "I promise." But deep in both their hearts, they knew danger still loomed, and it would take all their strength to face what was coming. The weight of inaction gnawed at Lucian's heart. Each hour that passed without word from Rena only added fuel to his growing dread. His wolf was restless beneath his skin, pacing, snarling, demanding he do something. Finally, Lucian could bear it no longer. He made his way back to the Alpha's estate, his steps swift, his mind made up. It was time Damien knew everything. No more secrets, no more risks. Inside the Alpha's private chamber, Damien stood by the window, the moonlight casting silver across his sharp features. He turned as Lucian entered, immediately reading the storm in his beta's eyes. "What is it, Lucian?" Lucian drew in a deep breath, his heart pounding. Then, in a voice steady but heavy with guilt, he spoke. "Alpha, there's something I must confess, something I should have told you long before now." Damien's eyes darkened with curiosity and warning. "Go on." Lucian didn't hesitate. He told Damien everything. About his suspicions of the Gamma, the strange meetings with an unknown female spy, the hidden dealings of the male guard. About how he sent Selena to infiltrate the Gamma's estate and the danger she'd barely escaped. About how, afterward, he placed Rena there to continue the mission, and how both women had confirmed the Gamma's treacherous associations. Every word felt like a weight lifted, and yet a blade twisting deeper. He spoke of Selena's near downfall, of Rena's silent disappearance these past hours, and of his growing fear that the Gamma's betrayal ran deeper than they had imagined. When he finished, the room fell into a thick, tense silence. Damien's jaw was tight, his eyes blazing with a storm of fury and disappointment. "Lucian, you kept this from me?" Lucian lowered his head, his voice low but honest. "I thought I could handle it. I didn't want to burden you, not with everything else. And Selena, she risked herself for me. I couldn't bear to involve you, not until I was sure I was wrong." Damien's fists clenched at his sides, his wolf roaring within. His beta, his most trusted, had acted alone, risking lives, risking the pack. His fury burned hot, but beneath it was understanding. Lucian's reasons weren't born of betrayal, they were born of loyalty, of love, and perhaps foolish pride. Finally, Damien exhaled, the tension in his shoulders easing only slightly. His voice, when it came, was cold but measured. "I understand why you did it, Lucian, but don't ever make that mistake again. We are stronger together. You risk not only your mate's life, but your own. The pack's safety is not yours to bear alone." Lucian bowed his head, guilt heavy on him. "Yes, Alpha. I swear it won't happen again." Damien turned to face the dark night beyond the window, his mind racing. His voice dropped low, dangerous. "So, spies still live among us. After Cece, after Julianne, still they plot within my walls." He turned back, his gaze sharp, determined. "It ends now. No more waiting, no more lurking in shadows. We will use those spies inside to lead us to the snake outside. And when we find them, Lucian, we end it. No more mercy." Lucian straightened, relief mingling with resolve. "As you command, Alpha." A deadly calm settled between them as the plan began to take shape. The time for secrets was over. Now was the time for war. Damien paced the length of his chamber, the moonlight casting his tall frame in silver and shadow. His mind raced, but his voice was steady, cold, with purpose. "Lucian," he said at last, turning to face his beta, his eyes sharp as blades. "We've been going at this the wrong way. I see it clearly now. As long as Zara still draws breath out there in the dark, we will never be rid of spies within these walls. She's the poison, and her influence will continue to seep into the hearts of traitors." Lucian nodded, his fists clenched at his sides, his heart pounding. "You're right, Alpha. She's the root of this rot. But how do we reach her? She hides well." Damien's lips curled into a dangerous smile, his power radiating in the air. "That's where the fools inside will help us. We let them play their little game. We let the Gamma, that snake, think his plan is working. We let him move his pieces. But all the while, we watch and we wait." He stepped closer to Lucian, his voice dropping low, filled with steel. "When they make their move, when they believe they have the upper hand, we strike, we take them all. No mercy, no trial, no banishment this time. Death." Lucian's wolf stirred at his Alpha's words, his blood singing for justice. Yes, Alpha, just say the word and I'll see it done. But Damien wasn't finished. His gaze hardened with protectiveness. Before that, you will pull Rena out. I won't have her life risked any longer. We've lost enough to this treachery. You've already risked Selena too much. We can't afford another loss. Lucian hesitated. But if I pull Rena out now, they may grow suspicious. I don't care. Damien's voice was sharp, final. Your mate is safe now. You will not gamble Rena's life. We'll find another way to bait the Gamma and his shadowy mistress. Pull her out. Tonight. Lucian swallowed his protest, feeling the weight of Damien's command. He bowed low. As you command, Alpha. I'll send word at once. Damien turned back to the window, his eyes on the distant darkness beyond their borders. His voice was quiet, but deadly. When this is done, Lucian, when the dust clears, Zara will be dead, and any who dare betray me will join her in the grave. The night seemed to hum with the promise of blood and justice as the two warriors prepared for the storm to come. The moment Lucian stepped into his estate, the moon casting cold light over the silent halls, he wasted no time. His heart pounded, his mind set. He sat at his desk, quickly penning a letter to Rena, his words firm but laced with care. Rena, I need you to find a way to leave the Gamma's estate at once. This mission has become too dangerous. Return at nightfall or the earliest safe moment. Do not delay. This is an order, Lucian. He sealed it with his insignia, handed it to his trusted sparrow and sent it into the night sky. But far across the estate grounds, in her lonely room at the Gamma's estate, Rena stared at the letter when it arrived. Her heart sank as she read Lucian's words. Leave? Return to him? Return? Where Selena now stood beside him. A bitter knot twisted in her chest. The image of Lucian and Selena, their closeness, their bond, it haunted her. Her hands trembled. Why should I return only to see what I've lost? Why should I go back to see them together? Her tears welled, but before they could fall, a knock sounded at her door. Quick, sharp, Rena froze. Before she could answer, the door creaked open, and the male spy stepped inside, his eyes glinting with cunning amusement. Forgive my intrusion, he said smoothly, stepping further into the room. But you seem troubled. May I help ease that burden? Rena stiffened. You shouldn't be here. I was just about to rest. But the male spy didn't leave. Instead, he leaned against the door, his smile cold, knowing. You're torn, aren't you? Torn between duty and your heart. You want Lucian, but you fear you've lost him to someone else. An Omega, no less. His words hit like poison-tipped arrows. Stop, Rena whispered, shaking her head. But he pressed on, his voice low, tempting. What if I told you there's a way to change your fate? A way to ensure Lucian is yours? With dark magic, even the mate bond can be redirected. I can help you. We can help you. All you must do is join us. Rena's breath caught. The offer dangled before her like forbidden fruit. She hesitated, the war raging within. And then, slowly, her pain and jealousy clouding her judgment, she nodded. What do I have to do? The male spy grinned, victory flashing in his eyes. Good girl, we strike at midnight. The female spy herself has ordered it. And you will stand with us. Without another word, he slipped from the room, leaving Rena alone with the weight of her choice. In his quarters, the male spy wasted no time. He scribbled a letter to the female spy, his hands quick. Sure, Rena has agreed. She is with us. At midnight, the plan begins. I will bring her. As the ink dried, the dark wheels of betrayal turned, and the night seemed to grow darker still, as if the moon itself recoiled from what was about to unfold. Before the midnight winds began to howl, Rena had already crafted her reply to Lucian. Her hand trembled slightly as she wrote, her heart heavy with confusion and jealousy, but her words flowed with cunning precision. Beta Lucian, I am grateful for your concern, but I cannot abandon the mission you entrusted me with. I must see this through for the safety of the pack. Please trust me to finish what you started. I will return only when the time is right. Sealing the letter, she handed it to the falcon. As the bird took flight, she drew in a shaky breath, trying to calm the storm inside her. If I leave now, Selena wins. I can't let that happen. Not yet. When Lucian received her letter in the quiet of his chamber, his heart sank. He read her words once, twice, a third time. His instincts screamed that something was wrong. Why would she refuse a direct order? His jaw clenched as he rushed to Damien's estate. In the dim-lit study, he explained, voice tight with concern. She won't return. I fear she might be slipping into treason. Damien, seated by the window, stared out into the night. The moonlight caught the hard line of his jaw. "Let her be for now," he said quietly. "If she's turned, we'll catch her soon enough. But you must stay sharp, Lucian. The enemy already walks among us." His gaze darkened. "We will end this. I swear it." Lucian nodded, but dread gnawed at him. His mate was safe, but the pack's walls were closing in with secrets and shadows. The midnight gathering. That night, the restless Rena paced her small chamber, unable to shake the weight of what she'd done. Then came the knock. The male spy entered, a wicked grin on his face. "It's time. She awaits." Rena's heart pounded as she followed him through the dark corridors of the Gamma's estate, out into the cold night air. Beneath the cover of trees beyond the walls, the female spy stood cloaked in black, her presence chilling. "Welcome, Rena," she said, voice like ice. "It's time you learn the full truth of our mission." And so they laid it bare. Their vile plot to assassinate Damien, Ella, and Lucian. The words hit Rena like stones. Her breath hitched. She hadn't expected this. Her head spun. "I've been tricked. Trapped." She couldn't back out. Not now. She saw the hunger in their eyes, the death that would greet her if she faltered. But deep in her heart, a new resolve began to form. "I can't let them kill Lucian. I won't. But if I must prove my loyalty to them..." A bitter thought crossed her mind. It will be Selena. If someone must fall, let it be her. Not Lucian. Swallowing her horror, she nodded. "I understand. I'm with you." The female spy's smile was sharp. "Good. We strike soon. You will play your part well, Rena, or you'll share the traitor's fate." As they vanished into the night's shadows, Rena's soul twisted. She had stepped too far into the dark, and now there was no easy way back. The night had grown colder, the air thick with the weight of what was about to happen. The female spy led the way, her steps soundless, her presence like a shadow clinging to the walls. Rena followed, her heart hammering in her chest, dread clawing at her insides. Beside them, the Gamma walked in silence, his face pale but hardened, his eyes dark pits of fury and grief twisted into something monstrous. They entered the Gamma's wife's chamber. The room was dim, the only light a flicker of lantern flame casting long, eerie shapes on the walls. There she lay, his wife still, fragile, barely clinging to what little life remained. The faint sound of her shallow breaths was the only proof she had not yet passed into the spirit realm. The female spy's voice cut through the heavy silence like a dagger. "It's time. You know what must be done. There is no turning back." The Gamma's hands trembled at his sides, his gaze fixed on the woman he once loved, now reduced to this pitiful, fading state. A storm of emotions flickered in his eyes, grief, anger, shame, but above all, the burning hunger for revenge, for power. For a moment, it seemed he might refuse. Rena, standing just a few steps behind, held her breath, hoping against hope he would step back from the brink. But then, with a shuddering sigh, the Gamma moved. His fingers found the small vial the female spy pressed into his palm. He knelt beside his wife's bed, his face contorted with pain, and poured the poison between her pale lips. It was over in moments. The woman's body gave a final weak shudder and then stilled forever. Rena froze, horror gripping her. "Goddess, what have I gotten myself into?" The female spy, unfazed, nodded with satisfaction. "Well done. Clean her up, make it look peaceful. We have much work ahead." Together they wiped away any trace of the crime, arranging the wife's body so that she appeared to have passed gently in her sleep. When it was done, the female spy and Rena quietly slipped from the room, returning to the shadows. The Gamma remained behind a moment longer. He stood at the threshold, staring back at what was left of the woman who had shared his life. Then, as if steeling himself, he stepped out into the hall. His voice rang out, breaking the night's heavy silence. "Help! Help me! My wife, she's gone! She's dead!" Footsteps came thundering from all directions. The estate burst into chaos as servants, maids, and guards rushed toward the source of the Gamma's cries. Soon the air was filled with wailing and mourning. The halls of the Gamma's estate became a place of grief, of sorrow. But beneath it all, treachery and blood had stained the night. And Rena? She returned to her room, shaken to her very core, her mind spinning with the terrible choice she had made, to walk the path of shadows, where every step led her further from the light. Rena stumbled back into her room, her legs barely able to hold her weight. She shut the door behind her and leaned against it, her chest rising and falling with ragged breaths. The room felt cold and unfamiliar, as if the darkness itself was pressing in on her, suffocating her with the weight of what she had just witnessed. Her mind replayed it. The Gamma's trembling hand, the vial of poison, the final shuddering breath of the woman who had once been his mate. His mate. How? How could a man sink so low as to kill the one the moon goddess had destined for him? All for power? All for the empty promise of a throne built on blood and treachery? She buried her face in her hands, her body trembling, and then came the cruel whisper of her own sins. "And what about you, Rena?" she thought bitterly. "What are you becoming?" She had let jealousy and bitterness lead her into this nightmare. She had allowed herself to be blinded by her secret longing for Lucian, convinced herself that harming Selena might clear the path for her. But now she saw where that path ended. Tears streamed down her face. What if Lucian never had feelings for me? What if I was just chasing shadows? And that male spy, how could I have been so foolish to believe him? She clenched her fists, the truth hitting her like a blade. There would be no dark magic mating, no future beside Lucian. She had been nothing but a pawn in their game. Rena sank to her knees, the weight of guilt and regret crushing her. I can't do this anymore. I won't. Her heart pounded as she made her decision. I will follow my heart. I will do what is right. Outside, the estate had descended into chaos. Servants and guards rushed about, their wails and cries filling the night air. The Gamma's voice echoed through the halls, feigning grief, calling for aid, cursing fate for stealing his wife. But Rena knew the truth, and in that chaos, she saw her chance. She rose, wiping her tears away, her resolve hardening. She pulled on the plain garments of a healer's servant, simple, loose-fitting robes that would not draw attention. She tied her hair back, tucking it under a hood, and covered her face with a worn scarf. Every step toward the door felt like shedding a layer of her shame. Quiet as a shadow, she slipped out, blending with the panicked crowd. No one noticed the extra figure in the flood of bodies rushing to mourn the Gamma's wife. No one looked twice at the healer's servant slipping out through the side gate. And then she ran. She ran like the wind, her feet pounding the earth, her heart racing. The night swallowed her, the cold air biting her cheeks, but she did not slow. She ran as if her life depended on it, because it did. She ran not just from the Gamma's estate, but from the darkness she had let take root in her soul. Rena had chosen, and now there was no turning back. Rena's lungs burned, her legs trembled with every step, but she pushed herself forward, driven by fear, guilt, and the need to right her wrongs. The night seemed endless, the shadows of trees and rocks blurring past as she fled the Gamma's estate, as if the darkness itself were trying to swallow her whole. Her breath came in ragged gasps, the cold night air slicing into her throat. She didn't stop, not once. Just a little further, just a little more, she told herself, her vision swimming with exhaustion. The lights of Lucian's estate finally appeared in the distance, like the promise of salvation. When she reached the estate gates, her strength gave out at last. Her legs buckled beneath her. The world spun. She clutched at the iron bars as if they might hold her upright, but the words she tried to speak caught in her throat. I need Beta Lucian. Her voice was a hoarse whisper, and before she could say more, darkness claimed her. She collapsed to the ground, unconscious. The guards stationed at the gate rushed forward. One of them, recognizing her pale, dirt-streaked face beneath the hood, knelt beside her. It's Rena, he called to his companion. Quick, get Lord Lucian. Without wasting a second, the other guards sprinted toward the main house, while the first carefully lifted Rena's limp form in his arms and carried her inside. Moments later, Lucian and Selena came running, their hearts racing with alarm. Lucian's eyes widened at the sight of Rena's still figure. He took her from the guard without hesitation, holding her close as if she might slip away. Call the healer. Now, he ordered, his voice sharp with worry. Selena followed at his side, concern etched on her face as Lucian carried Rena to one of the guest rooms, one that had been assigned to her before she ever left for the Gamma's estate. Gently he laid her on the bed, while Selena brushing damp hair from her face as the healer arrived in haste. The healer worked swiftly, checking her pulse, her breathing, examining her for injuries. Lucian hovered nearby, tension in every line of his body, while Selena placed a comforting hand on his arm. At last, the healer looked up. "She's not injured, my lord. Just exhausted. She must have run a great distance without rest. Let her sleep. She'll recover her strength by morning." Lucian let out a long breath, his shoulders slumping with relief. But his mind was far from at ease. What drove her to run like this? What happened at the Gamma's estate? Without wasting time, Lucian turned to the guards. "Station more men around this room. No one enters without my permission." As they saluted and moved to obey, Lucian looked at Selena, his resolve hardening. "I have to tell Damien, now." Selena nodded, her eyes filled with both worry and pride. "Go. I'll watch over her until you return." And with that, Lucian strode from the room, his heart pounding with urgency. He needed Damien. And this time, they would end this treachery once and for all. A few minutes later, Lucian's boots pounded the earth as he and Damien raced toward the estate, hearts heavy with urgency. The night air was thick, every second stretching unbearably as they closed the distance. When they burst through the doors of Lucian's home, the sound of soft sobbing guided them like a beacon. They hurried to the guest room, where Rena, pale and trembling, clung to Selena like a frightened child. Tears streamed down her face, her body shaking not just from exhaustion, but from the weight of everything she had witnessed and done. Selena stroked her hair, whispering soothing words, trying to ease the storm raging inside the young woman. The moment Rena's wide, tear-filled eyes landed on Damien, she froze. Fear gripped her heart like a vice. The towering Alpha radiated power, his mere presence enough to make any wolf bow low. His dark eyes burned with intensity, his aura so fierce it seemed to darken the room. But instead of unleashing that terrifying fury on her, Damien approached with surprising gentleness. He crouched slightly, his voice low and firm, carrying the weight of command and compassion all at once. "Rena," he said, "you are safe now. No one will harm you, but I need the truth. I need it all." His words wrapped around her like a protective shield, calming the storm inside her just enough for her to catch her breath. Damien straightened, his sharp gaze sweeping the room, his tone shifted, firm and final. "Everyone out, now." Even Lucian hesitated for a moment, but one look at his Alpha's face, and the rare steel of command that brooked no argument, sent him retreating with the others. The door closed softly, leaving Rena alone with the Alpha of the Northern Lands. Damien's voice dropped to a dangerous quiet, the calm before the storm. "Tell me everything. No lies, no secrets. Speak." Unable to stop herself, Rena fell to her knees before him, her tears dripping onto the polished floor. Her voice trembled as she confessed it all. The meetings, the female spy's true intentions, the poison meant for Lucian, the plan to slaughter Damien, Ella, Lucian, the horror of witnessing the Gamma murder his own mate. Every word out of her mouth seemed to feed the growing storm inside Damien, his fists clenched at his sides, his breathing heavy. When she finished, silence reigned for a heartbeat. Then Damien threw back his head and let out a menacing, ear-splitting howl that shook the very walls. It was the cry of an Alpha betrayed. Lucian burst back into the room, grabbing Damien's arm to steady him. His friend's fury was like a force of nature, dangerous and raw. "Damien, calm yourself." Lucian urged, his voice firm, though he too seethed inside. "We need clear heads, for Ella, for the pack." Damien's chest heaved, his eyes burning with a fire that could not be quenched. His voice when it came, was low, but filled with deadly promise. "They think they can tear apart what's mine. They think they can poison my home with betrayal." His lips curled into a snarl. "I'll show them why the North fears the name Damien. I'll make them wish they'd never drawn breath." And in that moment, the cold-hearted Alpha, the northern region whispered about in fear, the terror of traitors, the nightmare of rogues, was fully awakened. Now that the truth was laid bare before them, the Gamma's treachery, the female spy's vile schemes, the poison meant for Lucian, and the cruel murder of the Gamma's own mate, Damien's mind worked with cold, ruthless precision. His fury no longer burned uncontrolled. It was focused, sharpened like a blade, ready to strike. He paced the room, his dark eyes gleaming with a terrifying calm. "We'll let him think his plan is working," Damien said at last, his voice low, filled with deadly promise. "Let the Gamma believe he's pulling the strings. Let the female spy believe she's clever enough to outwit me. We'll draw them in, and when they are exposed, there will be nowhere left to run." Lucian nodded, his respect for his Alpha deepening. "We can use the Gamma to flush out the female spy and that snake of a guard. then use the female spy to lure Zara to her doom. Damien's smile was slow and dangerous, a glint of pure predator. Exactly, but this time, we flow with their plans. We make them think they have us in their web. At that moment, Damien called Selena back into the room. She entered, her eyes wide, her expression filled with concern. He explained everything: Rena's confession, the Gamma's plot, the treason that had poisoned their pack. Shock washed over Selena's face, her heart pounding as she listened to the depth of the betrayal. But when Damien spoke of the plan to play along, Selena straightened, determination flashing in her eyes. "Then I will help. I'll do whatever is needed. I won't let them harm you or Ella." Damien paused, studying her. For a moment he almost agreed, but then his protective instincts roared to life. He shook his head. "No, Selena, you've done enough. I won't risk you any further. This is my fight now." His tone left no room for argument. Selena opened her mouth to protest, but Lucien gently touched her arm, silently urging her to trust Damien's decision. Reluctantly, she nodded. Just then, a knock sounded at the door. A young messenger, breathless from his hurried ride, stepped inside and bowed low. "Alpha, I bring word from the Gamma's estate. His wife is dead, and he wishes to lay her to rest tonight. He requests your presence." Damien dismissed the messenger with a wave of his hand. When the boy was gone, Damien's smile returned, but this time it was a wolf's smile. Cold, merciless. How convenient. He thinks he can mask his crime with tears and mourning. Lucien's eyes glinted with shared purpose. "They'll not see us coming." Damien's voice dropped, soft and dangerous. "Prepare yourself, Lucien. We leave for the Gamma's estate in minutes. Tonight, the game begins and ends with us." Together, the two warriors moved with purpose, ready to walk into the den of the traitor, not as victims, but as hunters. The calm before the storm. Before setting out for the Gamma's estate, Damien moved with precision. His sharp mind knew better than to leave his home vulnerable. He turned to Lucien, his voice low but firm. "Station double the guards. No corner of this land should be left unwatched. If anything feels wrong, I want the alarm raised before blood is spilled." Lucien nodded, already barking quiet commands to his warriors as Damien mounted his horse and rode hard back to his estate. The night air was cool, but the fury in Damien's heart burned hotter than any flame. At his estate, Damien wasted no time. He went straight to Ella's chamber. The moment he stepped inside, she looked up from where she sat by the window, worry clouding her soft eyes. Her heart raced at the sight of his grim expression. "Damien, what's wrong? What happened?" Damien crossed to her, cupping her face gently in his hands. His touch, though tender, trembled faintly with the storm raging inside him. "There's danger, my love, deeper than we thought. The Gamma, he's betrayed us. He's working with spies to bring harm to this pack, to me, to Lucien, and to you." Ella's eyes widened with shock. "No, Damien, let me go with you. Please, I want to stand by your side." But Damien shook his head, his voice soft yet unyielding. "No, my heart, you've suffered enough. I will not place you in harm's way. Not tonight. Promise me, Ella. Stay here. Stay safe." Tears welled in Ella's eyes, but she saw the fierce love in his gaze, the need to protect her at all costs. She swallowed her protest and nodded, though her heart ached. Damien kissed her gently, his lips lingering against hers as if drawing strength from her presence. Before leaving, Damien gave strict orders, stationing his most trusted elite warriors all around his estate, ensuring no one would come near without his knowledge. Then he rode fast to Lucien's estate. There, Lucien had already done the same. Selena had been calmed, though the worry in her eyes mirrored Ella's. Lucien gave his mate a reassuring look, promising silently that he would return. With everything secured, Damien and Lucien set out together, their wolves pacing beneath their skin, ready for the fight ahead. At the Gamma's estate. Meanwhile, at the Gamma's estate, the messenger who had gone to summon Damien and Lucien returned breathless, delivering his report. The Gamma, already cloaked in the pretense of mourning, nodded solemnly. "They come," the messenger said, "both of them." "Good," the Gamma replied, his voice low, hollow with feigned grief, but his eyes glinted with dark purpose. Turning, he ensured the servants had made the preparations. In the great hall, a tray of tea waited, innocent to the eye, but laced with a poison so subtle no one would taste its bitterness. The Gamma smoothed his expression, donning the mask of a grieving mate, Inside his heart beat with a twisted excitement. Tonight would be the night he struck his blow. Tonight would be the night the great Alpha Damien and his loyal Beta Lucian fell. Or so he thought. The air was heavy with false mourning as Damien and Lucian arrived at the Gamma's estate. The estate, draped in the somber silence of grief, seemed almost too still, as if the walls themselves waited, watching what would unfold. At the sound of their arrival, servants scrambled to announce them. The Gamma, dressed in black robes of mourning, appeared at the grand entrance, his face a mask of sorrow. His eyes, red from forced tears, glistened in the torchlight. As Damien and Lucian dismounted, the Gamma hurried toward them, shoulders shaking as he pretended to weep. "My Alpha, my Beta, His voice broke, or so he intended it to sound. "I'm grateful you came in this hour of sorrow. I have lost my mate, my heart." Damien, ever the controlled Alpha, placed a firm hand on the Gamma's shoulder. His tone was gentle, laced with the right amount of sympathy. "You have our deepest condolences, old friend. A loss like this, I cannot imagine the pain." Lucian, standing at Damien's side, offered a brief nod of respect, his sharp gaze already sweeping the surroundings, noting every twitch of deceit hidden beneath the Gamma's mask of grief. The Gamma wiped at his eyes, drawing in a shaky breath. "Come inside. Please, share a cup with me. I won't keep you long." Inside, the great hall was dim, the torches casting long shadows. A servant approached swiftly, bearing a polished tray. On it sat 2 cups of steaming tea, the faintest hint of herbs drifting into the air. Lucian's senses, honed from years at Damien's side, caught it first, a subtle, unnatural fragrance beneath the mask of familiar tea leaves. His wolf stirred uneasily within him. Without a word, Lucian glanced at Damien, their eyes locking for a heartbeat. The smallest flicker in Lucian's gaze, danger. Damien read it instantly. The Alpha's face betrayed nothing as he reached for his cup, lifting it in a respectful gesture toward the Gamma. "To your mate's memory," Damien said smoothly, his voice calm, hiding the storm beneath. Lucian echoed him. "May the moon goddess guide her spirit." Under the Gamma's watchful eye, both men brought the cups to their lips, tipping them as if drinking deeply. The bitter taste of deceit touched their tongues, but they made no sign, no hesitation. Every movement was measured, flawless. The Gamma's heart soared with triumph. His smirk was hidden behind the mask of grief, but inside he burned with anticipation. Soon, they would fall. The poison would work its way through their veins, stripping them of strength, of life. Damien set down the empty cup and rose, his tone still kind, his eyes steady. "You have honored us with your hospitality, despite your sorrow. We won't trouble you longer tonight." Lucian followed suit, offering a few quiet words of comfort. His wolf seething at the vile game unfolding. "Thank you, both of you," the Gamma said, his voice trembling with fake gratitude, "for coming, for standing with me." He walked them to the grand doors, watching as they mounted their horses. His smile, once hidden, slowly curled into something sinister as he stood alone in the night. Soon they would fall ill. Soon the pack would be his. The Gamma turned back toward the darkened estate, his heart racing with the anticipation of his imagined victory. The antidote's toll. As soon as Damien and Lucian returned to Lucian's estate, the masks of calm they'd worn at the Gamma's estate fell away. Lucian moved swiftly, his sharp instincts in full command. "The tea, there was poison in it," Lucian said, already hurrying to his storeroom, where herbs and antidotes were kept. His fingers brushed over jars and vials with practiced precision, his mind racing through the combinations that could counteract the toxin he had tasted. Damien, though weakened by the slow burn of the poison, stood steady, his jaw clenched. "Find it fast, Lucian, before it takes hold." Summoning his estate healer, Lucian described the tea's scent and taste. Together they worked quickly, crushing herbs, mixing liquids, heating the concoction until the room filled with the sharp, earthy aroma of the antidote. "Drink," the healer urged, handing them each a cup of the bitter solution. Without hesitation, both men downed the mixture. The effect was immediate. Cramps seized their stomachs, and soon they were gripped by violent diarrhea as the antidote purged the poison from their systems. It was harsh, but necessary. The tea's deadly intent was flushed from their bodies, leaving them pale, drenched in sweat, but alive. Exhausted, Damien slumped into the nearest chair, his breath ragged. "I'll rest here, just for a few hours," he said, his voice hoarse. Lucian, though equally drained, stayed alert, his thoughts racing toward what must come next. The Gamma's wicked hope. Meanwhile, back at the Gamma's estate, the night's fake mourning had faded into quiet. The Gamma, no longer needing to keep up the act of grief, hurried to his study, where a candle flickered against the shadows of his sin. With shaking hands, but eyes gleaming with anticipation, he penned his letter. It is done. Damien and Lucian drank the tea in my hall as planned. They left soon after, showing no sign of suspicion. I await news of their fall. I stand ready for your next command. Sealing it swiftly, he summoned his trusted falcon, tying the message securely. The bird soared into the night, carrying with it his treacherous words. Far away, the female spy received his message before dawn. A slow smile curved her lips as she read his report. Fools, she thought. Their end draws near. Without delay, she wrote her reply. Good. Stay alert. Do not act yet. Wait for word of their illness. When they fall, we strike. The game was in motion, but unknown to her, Damien and Lucian had outplayed them. For now, after the grueling hours of battling the poison's effects, Damien finally rose from his seat, his strength slowly returning. His sharp eyes gleamed not with weakness, but with the cold resolve of a predator who had just narrowly escaped the hunter's trap. Lucian wiped the sweat from his brow and straightened beside him. Damien, we need to act now. They think we're dying. Let's use it. Damien gave a small nod. Call them. We move at once. Within moments, Lucian summoned those they trusted most. In the quiet of Lucian's estate, under the pale glow of lanterns, Damien and Lucian held a private council. Ella was there, concern in her eyes but strength in her heart. Selena stood at Lucian's side, a silent pillar of loyalty. The healer who had prepared the antidote joined them, as did 6 of Damien's personal elite warriors. Men and women who would die before betraying their alpha. Damien's voice was low, deadly calm as he addressed them. We are being hunted from within. The Gamma, the female spy, the male guard, they think they've poisoned us. We will make them believe they've succeeded. Lucian stepped forward. We want the rumor to spread through the pack like wildfire. Damien and I are gravely ill, our condition worsening by the hour. Let them think they've won. The healer nodded, understanding his role. I'll prepare herbs to make you look pale, weak, convincing enough for the eyes of spies and gossips. Damien's gaze swept over his warriors. I need you to be my voice beyond these walls. Quietly let the story slip where it matters most. No panic, just enough fear, enough uncertainty. The enemy will come for us when they think it's safe. Ella reached for Damien's hand, her fingers trembling slightly. Please, be careful. They won't hesitate to strike if they think you're vulnerable. Damien lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles. I promise, my love. This ends with them destroyed. I won't allow them to harm you again. Lucian's arm slipped protectively around Selena, drawing strength from the bond between them. His eyes met Damien's. We'll lure them out. This time, no one escapes justice. Selena's voice was quiet, but fierce. Whatever you need, I'll do it. For you, for Ella. Damien's expression softened for a moment at their loyalty, then hardened again with determination. Good, we begin tonight. Spread the word. Make it real enough that even the most skeptical will believe. The room filled with a shared resolve. The trap was laid. The hunters would soon become the hunted. Night draped the pack lands in a heavy cloak of silence, broken only by the hushed murmurs that began to ripple through the territory like a dark wind. Just as Damien and Lucian commanded, word spread, carefully planted by trusted tongues in key corners of the pack. The Alpha collapsed after leaving the Gamma's estate. I heard Beta Lucian can barely stand. It must be poison. Who could do such a thing? They're both on death's door. The healer said they may not last the night. From warriors patrolling the borders to kitchen staff tending the fires, the story took on a life of its own, feeding the curiosity and fear of the people. Yet beneath the surface of the pack's worry, a different current stirred. The spies, sensing victory at hand, began to whisper among themselves. At the Gamma's estate, the news arrived swiftly. The Gamma stood by his window, the moonlight casting shadows across his face, his trembling hands clenched into fists, but not from grief. A slow, twisted smile tugged at his lips. So, the poison worked, he muttered to himself, satisfaction mingling with greed. Soon it will all be mine. In a darkened corner of the room, the male spy watched him with a grin of his own. It's time. he said softly. We strike while they're weak. The Gamma nodded, emboldened by the false reports. But neither man noticed Rena's absence nor that her empty room meant their plans had already begun to unravel. Back at Lucien's estate, Damien paced in the private chamber, his skin pale from the herbs the healer had applied, his breath labored just enough to complete the illusion of weakness. Lucien sat nearby, his face equally drawn, though his eyes burned with sharp focus beneath the mask. Selena returned from her task of quietly spreading the rumor among the outer guards. She knelt before them, bowing her head. It's done. The story is everywhere. They believe it. Good, Damien said, voice low. Now we wait. They will come for us soon. And when they do, his hand curled into a fist. They will not leave these lands alive. Lucien crossed his arms, casting a glance at the door as if expecting it to burst open at any moment. We've outplayed them at their own game. The only thing left is for them to walk into the jaws of the wolf. Meanwhile, at the Gamma's estate, the female spy arrived under the cover of darkness, slipping through secret paths to meet the Gamma and the male spy. Her eyes glittered with hunger for power. You've done well, she hissed. The Alpha and Beta will fall. Tonight, we end it. But how do we move? The Gamma asked, still wary of outright attack. The Alpha's estate will be vulnerable. The Beta's too. We strike both. Their guards will be in disarray with their leaders dying. The Gamma hesitated, then, drunk on his ambition and the lies he'd fed himself, he agreed. Fine. We move at dawn. Damien's final words before the storm. As the hour grew late, Damien drew Ella close in their chamber at Lucien's estate, brushing a strand of hair from her face. His voice was soft but firm. Stay here. No matter what you hear, no matter what happens, stay safe. I need to know you're protected. Ella's eyes glistened, but she nodded, pressing her forehead to his. Come back to me, Damien. Promise me. I will, he vowed. For you, for our pack. Beside them, Lucien tightened the straps on his armor, the fire in his heart matching that of his Alpha. Together they would face the storm and end the treachery once and for all. The rumor of Alpha Damien's and Beta Lucien's sudden, mysterious illness swept through the pack lands like wildfire. From the outer borders to the heart of the territory, it shook the pack to its core. Warriors whispered in alarm. Mothers clutched their pups closer. The stronghold that was Damien's rule suddenly felt vulnerable. How could this happen to our Alpha? Who would dare poison Damien and Lucien? Is this the beginning of our fall? Panic brewed beneath the surface, and it didn't take long before the pack elders, faces drawn and voices urgent, convened a hasty meeting in the great hall. The Gamma was at the head of the table, his expression carefully crafted to show concern, but his heart thudded with hidden triumph. This is grave, one elder muttered, stroking his beard. If our Alpha is fallen, and the Beta too, our pack stands on the edge of ruin. We must see them at once, urged another. Without wasting time, the elders, flanked by the Gamma, made their way to Lucien's estate where the Alpha rested. The sight that greeted them confirmed their deepest fears. Damien, pale and resting under heavy furs, Lucien seated nearby, his strength seemingly drained. The healer spoke in hushed tones. Yes, the Alpha and Beta were poisoned. The source is still unknown. The poison was nearly fatal. Murmurs of dismay rippled through the gathered elders. They departed, the weight of the crisis heavy on their shoulders. The Gamma's scheme. Back at their council chamber, the elders gathered again. The Gamma stood, voice low but urgent. His eyes glinted with ambition masked as concern. We must act swiftly. Our Alpha may not rise again, he began, and I, like you, seek only the safety of our pack. The elders nodded grimly, listening. I fear, the Gamma continued, that the poison came not from outside, but from within. Now, who was closest to Damien and Lucien in these final moments before they fell ill? A silence. Then a murmur of realization. Ella, he said, his voice tightening with false regret. And Selena. Think on it. Lucien never officially introduced this Selena to the pack. She came from nowhere, a stranger in our midst. Some of the elders exchanged glances, troubled, but others bristled. To accuse the Luna? One barked. Do you wish for Damien's wrath to fall on all of us? You know his temper. I do not accuse lightly, the Gamma said, holding up his hands. But if we do nothing, if we allow our Alpha to fall and do not act to prevent his murderers from striking again? The room grew tense, divided. Some elders muttered agreement, poisoned by the Gamma's silver tongue. Others shook their heads. And when, emboldened, the Gamma suggested, "Until Damien recovers, I must take charge, temporarily, for the good of the pack." The chamber erupted in voices of protest. "No. Damien's blood runs strong. He will recover. He always does." But the Gamma persisted, his words weaving through their doubts like smoke. Little by little, he turned a few to his side, those whose pockets he'd already lined with gold and promises. Reluctantly, after much heated debate, the elders agreed. Temporarily, they stressed, until Damien rises. A dangerous glint flickered in the Gamma's eyes. The attempted arrest. No sooner had the meeting ended than the Gamma sent out his command. "Seize Ella. Bring her in for questioning. The pack must be protected." But when his warriors, emboldened by his newfound authority, approached the Alpha's estate, they were met with an unexpected wall of resistance. Damien's personal elite guard, hand-picked, loyal beyond death, stood firm at the gates, their eyes hard, their hands on their weapons. "You will not touch the Luna," their captain said, voice like steel. "Not while Damien breathes. Not while we stand." "Step aside," the Gamma's men demanded, by the order of the acting Alpha. The elite guards did not move. The tension crackled in the air, warriors on both sides tightening grips, claws itching to unsheath. Back at Lucien's estate, hidden behind the scenes, Damien and Lucien watched as the trap tightened, their fury mounting, but their patience holding firm. For now was the time to let their enemies come closer. Before striking the final blow, the tension at the Alpha estate crackled like lightning about to strike. The Gamma's men, facing off against Damien's loyal elite warriors, waited for the signal to attack. The Gamma's eyes gleamed with barely contained triumph. He felt the moment was ripe. The pack was shaken, the Alpha incapacitated, the Luna vulnerable. But Damien, watching from within Lucien's estate, saw that the time had come to tighten the noose around his enemies. His voice low, steady despite the storm brewing outside, he turned to the healer. "Announce it," he commanded. "Tell them I am dead." The healer's eyes widened in shock. "My Alpha, are you certain?" Damien gave a single nod, his expression hard as steel. "It's time." Though his heart pounded with fear of what might follow, the healer trusted his Alpha's plan. With practiced sorrow and trembling voice, he staggered out before the gathered warriors and pack members at the gate. "Alpha Damien has fallen to the poison," he announced, voice breaking. "The Alpha is dead." A collective gasp rippled through the pack lands. A howl of grief rose from the warriors, mingled with cries of horror. The news traveled fast. Like a dark wind sweeping through the territory, it reached every ear. The Gamma's bold move. The Gamma, hearing the proclamation, felt the last piece of his plan fall into place. He threw all caution aside. "Gather the elders. We go now to see for ourselves," he barked. With the elders trailing behind him, faces pale with shock and dread, he stormed toward Lucien's estate. They burst into the room where Damien lay still as death beneath heavy furs. The healer stood nearby, head bowed. The Gamma approached, forced false grief into his features, and placed a hand over Damien's chest, as if confirming for himself. His lips curled in hidden satisfaction. "And with Lucien gravely ill." He turned to the elders, his voice rising with urgency. "The pack needs leadership and protection. I shall act as Alpha until—" But his eyes landed on Ella, and something dark in him snapped. "Seize her," he ordered suddenly, stepping toward Ella himself. "She must answer for this treachery." The battle ignites, but before his men could act, a fierce growl tore through the room. Selena sprang forward, standing protectively before Ella. "You will not touch her," she snarled. Damien's elite warriors, already on edge, drew their weapons and took position. The Gamma's men surged forward, and in the next heartbeat, chaos erupted. Blades clashed, claws tore through the air, snarls and roars filled the estate. Ella, heart-pounding, felt the mate bond's strength surge through her veins. And in that moment, something deep and ancient within her stirred awake. With a cry that echoed through the estate, she transformed, her white wolf emerging, brilliant and majestic, fur shimmering in the moonlight streaming through the windows. Her presence turned the tide of the fight. The Gamma's warriors faltered at the sight of her, the Luna reborn in power, her wolf formidable and fierce. But before the battle could end, two shadows darted into the fray, the female spy and the male guard. With speed unnatural, they struck, forcing their way into the fight. And then the greatest shock of all. In the heat of the clash, as the female spy battled fiercely, her features twisted, and she shifted into her true form. Gasps rang out even amidst the fight as warriors recognized her, one of Damien's own elite, thought loyal beyond question, eternal betrayer in their midst. The estate was now a battleground, friend against foe, betrayal unveiled, as the fight for the future of the pack raged on. Rose, still burning with false pride, sneered as she stepped forward, her eyes locked on Selena. Hatred gleamed in her gaze, and with a savage growl, she raised her claws, ready to strike. But before she could even move an inch closer, a terrible voice, deep and thunderous, rang out through the chaos. "Enough!" The sound froze every soul in the room. It was a voice they all knew, a voice that struck terror into the hearts of his enemies and inspired fierce loyalty in his warriors. Damien. Side by side with Lucian, he strode into the chamber, his eyes blazing red, his aura so dark and powerful that even the bravest among the traitors trembled where they stood. Lucian, though pale from his ordeal, stood tall and ready, his hand gripping his blade. Damien took a slow step forward, his gaze fixed on eternal Rose. His voice was low, but it carried like thunder. "Rose, eternal, my trusted warrior, you dare betray your Alpha? You dare betray your pack?" Rose's smirk faltered as Damien's power rolled off him in waves. Damien's eyes darkened, the red in them glowing fiercer. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "You've made your choice, Rose, and it was the last mistake you'll ever make." His gaze swept the room, falling on the Gamma and the male guard, who now cowered under the weight of his fury. "All of you, traitors, I gave you a home, I gave you my trust, and this is how you repay me?" No one dared move. Even the Gamma's men, seeing Damien alive and the terror in his eyes, hesitated, torn between fear and duty. Ella's white wolf stood at Damien's side, her growl low and warning, fur bristling as she waited for his. Some of the Gamma's men, gripped by panic at the sight of their Alpha alive, turned to flee. But they didn't make it far. With terrifying speed, Damien shifted into his wolf form, a monstrous black beast of fury, and in swift, brutal strikes, tore down those who tried to escape. Blood splattered the ground, the others fell to their knees, paralyzed by fear. The Gamma collapsed to the floor, trembling, his face pale as death itself. But Damien wasn't done. With a cold, merciless gleam in his eyes, he seized the Gamma by the collar and yanked him up as though he weighed nothing. Without a word at first, he dragged the Gamma forward. Then, in front of everyone, Rose, Marco, the warriors, and the stunned elders who had arrived in the commotion, Damien began the punishment. Fist after brutal fist, he pounded the Gamma's face, breaking bones, spilling blood. His claws tore through flesh, raking deep gouges down the traitor's chest. The Gamma's screams echoed through the hall, but Damien did not stop. "Mercy!" The Gamma sobbed at last, barely able to speak through swollen lips and shattered teeth. "End it, please." But Damien only smirked, his face dark with a rage that chilled the blood. His voice was a low growl. "End it? Oh no, I've only just begun." With savage precision, Damien broke the Gamma's arms, then his legs, the sound of snapping bones sickeningly loud. Blood pooled at their feet. Then, as the Gamma's screams reached new heights of agony, Damien used his claws to skin him, slowly, methodically, making sure that Rose and Marco had no choice but to watch every single second. "This is the price of betrayal," Damien snarled, his voice a promise of doom. Rose's pride cracked, terror overtaking her. Marco trembled so violently he could barely stand. And still, Damien was not done. After flaying the Gamma's skin from his body, Damien's rage had not cooled. The traitor's broken, blood-soaked form barely clung to life, his ragged breaths wet and gurgling. Damien crouched, his claws glinting with crimson, and without a shred of mercy, he reached forward and gouged out the Gamma's eyes. The Gamma's final cries of agony echoed through the entire estate, a sound so harrowing that even hardened warriors flinched. Then, with one brutal twist of his hands, Damien snapped the Gamma's neck, ending his misery. But even that wasn't enough for the Alpha who had been pushed too far. He grabbed a thick, jagged branch lying nearby, its end sharpened like a spear, and with savage force drove it through the Gamma's belly, pinning his lifeless body. Blood gushed forth in a sickening stream, splattering the earth beneath. With terrifying strength, Damien hauled the body up and hung it high on a tree at the edge of the courtyard, leaving the corpse for the carrion birds to feast upon. The estate fell deathly silent, save for the soft sobs of the shocked and terrified. Marco stood frozen, the stench of urine filling the air as he wet himself in terror. His legs buckled, unable to bear his weight. Rose, once so proud, collapsed to the ground, her body shaking violently, her face pale as ash. And then from the corner a soft thud. Ella, who had shifted back to her human form, fainted at the sheer horror of what she had just witnessed. Two of Damien's female warriors rushed forward, lifting their Luna with care and hurrying her into the safety of the estate, their hearts pounding. The gathered warriors, servants, and elders stared at the gruesome sight, unable to speak, their souls chilled. There was no longer any doubt. The ruthless, feared Alpha of the northern region, the one whose name alone made enemies tremble, had fully awakened. Damien turned, his face smeared with blood, his expression cold as death itself. He locked his gaze onto Marco, who lay quivering at his feet. A slow, dangerous smile curved Damien's lips. "Your turn," he said in a voice that promised terror. Damien's cold gaze bore into Marco as he stood trembling, too terrified even to run. His lips curled into a cruel smirk, his voice like ice. "Did you think betraying me would end with a quick death, Marco? No. You'll learn what it means to defy your Alpha." Marco fell to his knees, sobbing, his voice cracking as he begged. "Alpha Damien, please, I was forced. I had no choice. Please spare me, I swear I'll—" But Damien only laughed softly, a dark, hollow sound that sent chills through everyone present. "Begging won't save you," he whispered, eyes gleaming with menace. Then he turned to one of his warriors. "Bring me the whip, the silver needle one." The warrior didn't hesitate. He sprinted off to fetch the infamous weapon that had been the last sight of many enemies. Marco's face drained of color. His body quaked so violently he could barely remain upright. Damien stepped closer, towering over him. His voice dropped lower, each word a dagger. "You thought hiding behind lies and shadows would protect you? You thought you were clever, Marco? All I see before me is a coward who will die a traitor's death." Marco's pleas turned to incoherent babbling, tears streaming down his face as terror consumed him. Soon the warrior returned, though holding out the dreaded whip, its silver strands glinting under the moonlight, razor-sharp needles woven into each cruel braid. Damien took it with deliberate slowness, savoring the fear in Marco's eyes. He coiled it in his hand, testing its weight, then raised it high. Crack! The first lash tore across Marco's chest, slicing through flesh with brutal precision. Marco's scream rent the night, so piercing that even the bravest of warriors flinched at the sound. It was as if his very soul fled his body at the whip's kiss. Damien didn't stop. His face remained a mask of grim satisfaction as he delivered strike after strike. Crack! 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 Each lash drew more blood, turning Marco's body into a canvas of agony, the silver needles embedding, ripping, flaying. His howls weakened, his voice breaking until all that came were ragged gasps. When Marco could no longer even cry out, Damien grabbed him by the jaw, forcing his mouth open. "Let's silence your lies forever." With brutal efficiency, he tore out Marco's tongue and flung it to the ground like refuse. Still not satisfied, Damien had Marco hauled up and tied to a tree, hanging like a grotesque trophy. "Keep whipping him," Damien ordered a warrior, his tone dark with finality, "until I say stop." The warrior obeyed, though Marco lasted less than 30 seconds more. His broken, bloodied body gave one final shudder before death claimed him. Though Damien stepped back, wiping a speck of blood from his cheek. Slowly his gaze slid to Rose. She stood frozen, pale as a ghost, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Damien's smirk deepened, a predator savoring his next kill. "Well, Rose, it seems it's just you now." Damien strode forward, with the measured calm of a predator toying with its prey. His boots crunched against bloodied earth, stopping right in front of Rose. She was still trembling, too weak to stand, too terrified to breathe properly. With terrifying calm, he slowly crouched before her, so close their faces were nearly touching. His cruel smirk widened, eyes blazing like twin coals as he leaned in, forcing her to look him dead in the eye. "Look at me," he growled, his voice carrying the power of the Alpha's command. Rose's eyes locked with his, her body paralyzed by the raw dominance radiating from him. Still squatting, he grinned like the devil himself, dark, feral, and merciless. "Write to Zara," he said, his voice low but laced with a venomous edge. "Tell her your little mission was successful. Tell her to come with her spies before dawn to see with her own eyes how the great Alpha Damien lies weak and vulnerable. Get her a letter paper, Lucian. His alpha command sank deep into Rose's bones, making her unable to disobey. Soon. Lucian returned with a clean letter paper, and with terrible shaking, her hands moved on their own as she scribbled the message exactly as he instructed. The words were poison-laced lies meant to bait the enemy. Exactly what Damien wanted. Once the message was done, she whistled loudly. A falcon came flying towards her. She tied it to the leg of her falcon. Still trembling, she released it into the sky. The bird soared, vanishing into the moonlit clouds. Damien watched the bird disappear, then without warning, whip! The sharp crack of his hand across her cheek echoed loudly. Her head snapped to the side, blood dripping from the corner of her mouth. Then came the blade. I'd silence you forever too, he whispered darkly. Lying traitors don't deserve to speak. With one swift motion he cut out her tongue. The wet, fleshy piece dropped to the dirt beside her. She screamed. No sound came, only a gurgled whimper. Damien raised his dagger again, angling it toward her eyes. But then he paused. His smirk returned. No, he said coldly. You'll need those eyes. I want you to see what I'll do to Zara when she arrives. I want your last memories to be soaked in horror and regret. He stood up slowly, towering over her bloodied form. Turning to two of his trusted female warriors, he spoke with chilling finality. Take her to my dungeon, the cold pit. Lock her where the dead fear to go. The warriors saluted and dragged her away, her mangled form screaming silent sobs. That dungeon was legendary. Submerged in icy water that numbed the limbs and pierced the bones, with a slow-turning wheel of jagged wooden spikes that tore into flesh with every movement, no one survived that place sane. Watching them go, Damien exhaled deeply, then turned to Lucian, who was now standing beside him, sword still in hand. Gather the elders, he said coldly. 10 minutes. I want this over with. Lucian nodded and vanished into the night to follow the command. Damien glanced back once more at the bloodied courtyard before storming off, but not before ensuring his estate was on high alert, every warrior in place, Selena guarded, Lucian protected. And then, without wasting a second more, he made his way straight to Ella. His Luna, his everything. He needed her scent, her voice, her presence. Because soon, he would walk into the storm of blood once again. Meanwhile, when Zara received the falcon bearing Rose's letter, she barely had the patience to untie the scroll. Her hands trembled in excitement as her eyes devoured the contents. Damien poisoned, Lucian down, Ella vulnerable. The pack in chaos, her lips curled into a wicked smile. Finally, victory was within reach. She didn't wait. She raced weakly through the underground lair, her weak footsteps echoing against the cold stone floors until she reached the high chamber where Lila was seated on her shadowed throne, nursing a goblet filled with blood wine. Her eyes flickered with irritation as Zara burst in unannounced, but the moment she saw the grin on her face, her curiosity piqued. Well, Lila purred, swirling her wine lazily. You're either here with good news or to die. Zara dropped weakly to one knee, grinning. Damien is down. Lucian too. Rose said everything is in place. We've won, my queen. Lila raised an eyebrow, still unconvinced. Rose said that? Zara nodded. She gave details. Everything is falling apart. Their pack is in shambles. This is the perfect time to strike. Still, Lila didn't move. Her eyes narrowed with quiet suspicion. Damien, that beast doesn't fall easily. You of all people should know that. How can we be certain it's not a trap? Zara's face darkened with urgency. Rose was once his most trusted warrior. If anyone could bring him down, it's her. She knows all his weaknesses, all his habits. She used to protect him with her life. Now she's handing him to us on a platter. Lila stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, she rose from her throne. If this is a lie, you'll die by my hands before the sun rises. Zara bowed her head. I swear it's true. Let me finish what I started. Let me bring you Ella's head, your final prize. A long silence followed, thick with Lila's internal weighing of risk and ambition. Finally, the dark sorceress nodded. Fine, go. Take your 3 best spies with you. End this. Zara's face lit up. Yes, my queen. Lila stepped close, her breath icy against Zara's cheek. Bring me Ella's head, or don't come back at all. Zara bowed once more and rushed out, giddy with bloodlust and triumph, her heart thundered with anticipation as she called her 3 spies, saddled her black horse, and began the journey to what she thought would be Damien's grave and Ella's final breath. Back in the dark throne room, Lila sipped her wine and whispered softly to herself, "Let's see if the devil truly sleeps, or if this is the trap I fear it is." And somewhere, in the shadows of the icy dungeon, Rose screamed soundlessly as blood dripped from her mouth, still hearing Damien's haunting words echo in her ears. "Watch, Rose. Watch and see what I do to your queen."